falling up, I'm falling down from the sky and from the ground. Up above, just like below, and I don't know where I should go. I'm out of love, but I guess I deserved it. Trying to hide, to pass you by. I'm getting down, feeling fine. I'm light as air, no one can reach me. Lost in a dream, lost in between. Let's keep on flying, let's keep on breathing. I'm falling up, I'm falling down from the sky and from the ground. Up above, just like below, and I don't know where I should go.
Like a broken soul in a wonderland without angels. That is how
Hey everyone, we're back with more HLTV confirmed. Another week, another show. It's going to be great. We have three of us here ready tonight for some CS talk. With me, as always, is Professeur from Croatia and very special guest Maniac from Lausanne in Switzerland. Hey man, thanks for joining us.
Hello.
The quiet wave. I like it. So Maniac, we've been trying for a while to get you on the show, and the reason we wanted to do that is because, well, you're Maniac. Obviously, you should have some interesting insight to share with us, as you're a former pro, but also a current analyst. But we also wanted to talk about a few things about the French scene, and I think we couldn't have been more lucky, right? Because today, actually, or at least the past week, has been one of the most interesting times in recent years in the French scene, because we have LDLC making a great run at IEM Chicago, G2 potentially making new roster moves, and a new French team spawning in Vitality. So yeah, the stars aligned. So thanks for coming on.
I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that we finally found time to do that. And I think you're right. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening in the French scene, and if I can help, if my opinion has any value, then I'm happy to give it to you.
For those of you that don't know, Maniac or Mathieu, who spent some years or some time in LDLC back in 2014, and also Titan. You guys were recruited by them, and then you coached Envious, I think, also for a little while before returning as a player, actually with some Danish guys in Rogue, in Unity that later became Rogue, and then back in LDLC before retiring this May, I think, was it?
Yeah, exactly.
So there's already a lot of people in the chat. Mathieu, raise your baguettes. This is gonna be the all-out French episode.
I have to embrace the baguette. I have to embrace the French player, French analyst. I think I cannot fight it, so I might as well, become part of it.
This is to say, and I want to put this out now because we did make this mistake a few times on HLTV, that Mathieu is actually Swiss and not French, although he did play in French teams. I was putting out an article as a prelude to the show where I showed sort of a short profile of you, and one guy in our chat actually tagged me and said, "Hey, we messed up the French tag again, just to troll us, because it's become a meme now that HLTV doesn't really know where you're from." So guys,
I hope you at least got his name right now on the stream.
You can even see
is it okay on the stream now? Yeah, it does actually. Yeah, let's go.
And Nil is even Nil of VP Esports is even in the chat saying he's not a baguette. I guess if that's not the final confirmation that you're in fact not French, I don't know what is. But
Nel confirmed.
Nel confirmed.
Exactly. Nel was actually the one to put out the news that we're going to talk about a little bit later about potential G2 roster moves. But let's start out, Mathieu, with some interview talk with you instead, because. You've been, if I'm counting this correctly, you were active for 11 years, right? If you count CS 1.6 and Source?
It depends really what you call active. I have been playing Counter-Strike for 18 years. I think it went out 2000, right? If I'm not mistaken, I was 10 years old when my cousin showed me the game. I've played it ever since. Now, I've had teams since I was probably 16, but it's only been maybe the past 5 years, I would say, 5 to 6 years where I really played a lot and started making some money out of it, went to competition. But yeah, basically CSGO or CS has been part of my life for almost 20 years now, so long time.
Yeah, and I remember when you retired in May, it was like a really heartfelt Twitlonger, as heartfelt as Twitlongers get. It was pretty. You could certainly feel that. So just to touch on it, what was that like for you to step back from at least the active part of playing?
Well, as you say, it was very emotional. Well, right now I'm still involved in it, so I'm very happy about it. But by the time I put this tweet out, I really thought that this was the end of me and Counter-Strike in general. And there is really no way other than say that CSGO has changed my life completely. Just Counter-Strike in general has really shaped my life, has had me meet people who have become friends and best friends, helped me to learn languages, has me traveling around the world, some crazy experiences. So it has become a part of my life in totality. So obviously when I stepped down and I stopped playing, that was an emotional moment. That was something that I really thought through, and it was not like a rash decision. But I think it was important for me to, in that tweet at least, to show everything I was thankful for, because I think, and I still think now, that what we do, being involved in esport, is exceptional in every way. and I think it's very important to be thankful and realize like the chance that we have. So for me, that was the idea in that tweet. Just say, you know, everything that gaming has given me, but I try and give a little bit back.
Yeah. So and the way you're doing that is now being an analyst on, I think actually a lot of the events that we've seen. You were at, let me just recount it real quick. You were in Epicenter,
Yeah.
and also before that the Minor, I think, Blast Pro, and then you're going to be doing the Malta thing in at the end of the month. So you're certainly not the first guy to do that. The first guy to come from active being a pro and then going on the analyst list. But what's it been like for you to actually stand outside the game and talk about it?
Well, first of all, I had a brief period in my career. I think it was the end of 2014 when Titan released me, where I did a few events. I did IEM San Jose, I did DreamHack Winter, and I also did Star Ladder back then. And I had a very good feeling. I had a really good time. So when I retired and events came to me and asked me, do you want to be on the panel for this event? I already knew that it was something that could be interesting. And I have to say, I really fell in love with it. For me, first of all, the tactical aspect of Counter-Strike has always been something that interested me. Even when I was playing, I always thought about the game. I always tried to optimize the game. I maybe didn't always do it as a player, but at least that was something that was important for me. So now I get the opportunity to do what I love. I'm still involved in Counter-Strike. I still travel. I still see friends and almost like family at this point. So for me, it's really a win-win. I have time on the side to do other stuff because I have other commitment in my life at the moment. And then, here and there, I'm going to pop to an event, talk about Counter-Strike. It's kind of a way to give a little bit back to the community. So this analyst position is something that really fits me at the moment. At least I have a very good time. I'm really invested in it, and I'm trying to do my best job in it. And I'm thankful that I have had this opportunity because people came to me asking, "Do you want to do this?" And obviously, I said, "Yeah, let's go, let's do that." I had a good time. I will probably have a good time now.
Do you think that it's like that there's something inherent or in common between all the players who end up like doing this? Is there something? Do you think there's someone you can kind of tell as their pro career is progressing that these guys are probably gonna be one of the guys that we'll see? Because I guess for me it kind of fits with you, right? You were always the more talkative one. You obviously gave a lot of interviews. You're always ready to talk about, and even with your stream that you have now, you do a lot of analyzing for that. Do you think it's kind of some players are kind of destined to go that route?
Well, as you say, I think first of all, you need to have at least some interest in the tactical aspect of the game, right? Because if you're absolutely not interested into that, obviously being an analyst is not going to be something that's enticing to you. I think you need to see the beauty in the pop flash. You need to see the beauty in what Astralis is doing, for example. So you need to have some kind of interest into that. And then the other side of it, the side that I'm discovering right now, and people at home probably don't really realize that, is that being on the desk is not only talk about Counter-Strike, it's also being an entertainer. It's being on the broadcast. It requires a lot of professional skill in that regard, and that maybe doesn't fit with everyone. For me, it's a learning process because I'm kind of confident in my ability to talk about Counter-Strike, and I'm pretty sure that what I say usually makes sense when it comes to the game. But then again, you're in front of a camera, you're part of a show, you have to entertain people. And that's not something that comes naturally. I think for me, it's something that I had to learn and still learning, definitely. So yeah, if you have someone that feels like with an outgoing personality, who loves to talk about the game, think about the game, then yes, I think that profile usually fits pretty well in the desk segment overall.
By the way, Prof, you can come in and ask some questions for Maniac if you want, and also the guys in the chat. If you have some sort of question for Mathieu, please let us know. I already have some written down from the article that we did, but Prof, please feel free.
Yeah, just like moving away from the game. Do you miss competing and all of that comes with a professional player, or at least like being a coach side of it?
Yeah, I do. I miss competing a lot, and even when I retired, I knew that I was gonna miss it. Whenever I have this rule, that whenever I look at a game, I see a game, whenever the game ends, I have to go and play. That's it. That's stronger than me. There's nothing I can do about it. If I see an interesting game, I'm watching it on my sofa, and then it ends up, I go play deathmatch instantly. Like I go play, I put some music on, and I go play. So yeah, the competing side, obviously I miss. I think these are emotions, that you don't really get anywhere else in your usual life. The adrenaline, the highs and the lows, because obviously sometimes you lose and you feel terrible for a very long time. But the victories that you can get in competition, it's something absolutely unique, at least for me, probably for other people that play sports, I would say, at a high level. So yeah, I do miss competing, and you can believe it that when I play Face It right now or whatever it is, I'm very competitive still.
Yeah,
I still
try
play to
harding.
win. I'm still a try hard. I'm probably that guy that you hate when you play against him, because I'm playing with my friends and I'm trying to in-game lead what's happening. So yeah, I miss competing, but I'm at peace with what I'm doing right now. I'm very happy in what I'm doing right now. But yeah, I do miss playing.
Actually, when we were setting up the technicalities for the stream or the technical side of things, you were actually in game while doing it.
Yep.
So I was like,
Guilty as
okay,
charged.
can you send me the link that sends me your signal for the? I'm actually playing right now, so you'll have to wait 30 minutes for this to.
Yeah, I still play. I still play the game.
There was actually a guy on HLTV.org in the comments section, and this is very constructive for that. Did you have any offers to coach since retiring, or any offers to join a team again?
So I didn't really get any offers to coach. I've had people come to me and talk to me about, would you be interested in? But I made it very clear, even publicly, that I was comfortable in what I was doing now, and the huge difference, because like if I say it like this, being a coach could certainly be something interesting. The human aspect of it, the tactical aspect of it, that is definitely something that could interest me. The big difference between being a coach or an analyst for a team and doing it for events as freelancer is the amount of free time that you get between events, which for me is very important at the moment. The time that I have between events is the time that I invest in other activities. I wouldn't join a team right now just because then you have to work 24/7 with a team. Like I am a very how to say, I don't really know how to say that in English, but like either I do stuff 100% or I don't do it. So I wouldn't join a team right now if I feel like, I need my time off. I need to work on other stuff that's happening. So that's the reason why I didn't really pursue any of these discussions. But I've had people come to me and ask, but I just didn't pursue it. So I never came to the point where someone would, make me an offer. And as a player, that's pretty much the same. I've had people come talk to me, say, hey, would you think about going, play again, because we could have this happening, we could have that. But then again, I'm pretty happy in what I'm doing. So for me to come back on my decision would take something huge that, realistically speaking, is probably not going to happen. So I'm not ruling it out, but that should be so huge that it's probably not going to happen.
When G2 calls.
I mean, there are some calls you're not going to ignore, but this is just not going to happen. And I'm very happy in what I'm doing. So, the in-between is kind of, I feel good in my situation right now.
Yeah, I wanted to just ask you about just your thoughts on coaching in general, because I think a lot of people see you as a good fit for a coach, but you actually only coached LDLC, right? That was not LDLC, Envy.
Yeah.
Envy, yeah. So, and that didn't last that long. So how did you, what did you think about the role and just like being in that position in the team?
Well, it's kind of a complicated question. I think, first of all, your experience as a coach is going to be defined by your relationship with people and how well it is established. I think it's a challenging situation to be able to be close with people but still have some authority on them, and get them to listen to you whenever you need to put you, like, fist on the table. And then the tactical aspect is pretty much something I haven't checked. Like I'm sure I could work with anyone, and I'm sure I would have like the ability to look at a team play and maybe pinpoint like some stuff that we need to work together. That's okay. But being a coach and being an efficient coach is also a huge, like, let's say, like a human challenge in a way, because you need to have a relationship with people where people respect you, you respect them, you work together towards the same goal, but sometimes you're going to clash with them, and how you handle these moments is key. So I think that's why, for example, Zonic is apparently doing a very good job at Astralis, because I think they figured out this relation where we are all looking in the same direction. Sometimes maybe I have to say something that's you're not gonna appreciate it, but that's for the better of the team, and everyone kind of accepts this concept. So if you can clap your fingers and have a perfect environment when everyone is extremely professional and everyone understands that the team and the coach and the staff is looking in the same direction, then yes, I think being a coach can be a very, very interesting adventure, because you have these players and you can help them as person, you can help them as players, you can help them as a team. There's so much stuff to do around teams, and I think that's very undervalued and underused at the moment. But the reason for that is that it's hard to get there. I always say it whenever I have the occasion. Being a professional or being a very good team is not only about being super good with your mouse. It's also about being, an athlete, a professional, and all the qualities that come with it. And for a coach to be in a team and things to work perfectly, then I think it requires a lot, at least humanly speaking, if I can say it like this.
I mean, with the way you're speaking about it, it sounds like you're kind of the perfect guy for the job.
I take that as a compliment.
Yeah. Anyway, so if any of you guys have questions that are not what this guy asked, can you ask Maniac what brand of sweater that is? I mean, it is beautiful, but
someone is asking me about the sweater.
Yeah, I don't know if that's really
personal. I would need to take it off and see because I'm not sure, so I'm not going to do that.
I think
is a family-friendly stream.
That would be appreciated too, because there are also a lot of comments on your appearance.
We might get banned though. I'm not sure like what the no-shirt policy is on Twitch. Maybe
I don't think that works really well. I'm not going to take the risk for that. Not for you guys.
Bump us into another bracket. You can do that on some kind of show once, or maybe. If the Movember shit gets out of hand, I guess you can follow them up, right? Anyway, you can answer this person in private maybe once you take it off. There's also something that I wanted to ask, because I want to touch on what you said before about giving it your 100%, which is one of the reasons why you won't return now. It's pretty well known that you also have a degree in psychology, or master's, is it?
Yeah, master's degree, yeah.
Yeah, so how does that really fit in with what you said? I mean, taking time off to take like this really challenging education while being a full-time player.
To be honest, I think when I did my master degree, things were a little bit different than it is now. When I was in Titan and I was doing my first master degree, because I'm doing a second master degree at the moment. So if people don't know, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm working on a second degree. But the thing is, when I was in Titan, the economy that was in Counter-Strike was a little bit lower than it is now, and some people would still do 50-50. Some people would work, and then usually with practice in the evening, which now for at least the professional is different. I think most people practice in the afternoon now, so that you get like a rhythm that's a little bit more socially accepted, and then you get time with your family and everything. That was different back then. When I was in Titan, we used to play in the evening. I'm not gonna lie, that was extremely challenging. I had basically weeks of 80 hours because I was doing my master degree. I was also working 50% as a consultant for a company because my university professor hired me to work in his cabinet. So I was working with my professor. I was doing my degree and I was playing with Titan. So I was doing a million stuff at the same time. Very challenging. But now it is different. Now, whenever you get professional, it is my understanding that it's much more time invested than it was before, or at least it's a middle of the day. So I think it has become very hard to do both. I'm not sure. I think Robs is doing it at the same time. I know Kerrigan has been studying, so a few people can manage that.
One too, actually.
Yeah, I mean, all in all, if the team is okay with it and you find a rhythm, then sure. But I think it's much more challenging now than it was when I did my master degree.
All right. So let's jump into the one thing that a lot of people already want to know about, and one of the things that was actually the reason why we also wanted you on, which is la scène française, huh?
La scène française.
So,
hot topic.
Voudrez-vous continuer en français?
Oui. On peut faire ça en français, oui. On peut faire ça en français.
Oder dann können wir auf Deutsch also
sprechen. Wir auch, ja.
That's about the extent of my knowledge of those two.
We can leave it at that. People will assume you speak German.
Exactly. So, Prof, you can join in Croatian if you really feel like it.
But yeah, I'm not sure. Like a lot of people would be like very interested in that, so we can skip.
Just no offense, but probably French is more beautiful to listen to if you don't know what's being said.
Yeah. Anyway. I mean, also any language is like more beautiful to listen to than Danish, so maybe I can try.
You do have a point there, I have to say.
Thank you. Just so you know, Mathieu, every time a Dane is mentioned on the show and I try to pronounce him in the right way, there's, for example, a player on North right now who's very interesting in that regard, I usually get made fun of. So
yeah, I figure.
Not this time. At least I have the French pronunciation somewhat down, so it shouldn't be a problem this time. Anyway, let's head right into it, because a bomb was dropped this very early morning. I was actually one of the first to see it, I think, because I usually get up very early. VP Esports dropped a report that said that G2 were going to switch out some players, and For the way it's looking right now is that Existence and Smiths are going to be replaced by a couple of 3D Max players. I don't think a lot of people think that's very surprising the way, if you look at the way the team is played. But then again, it was touted as like this really huge long-term project. So in a sense, for me it's pretty odd, since I think it seemed kind of true. It seemed kind of believable that they were doing a long-term thing. But then again, the results maybe weren't that how you'd really expect from them. So when you saw that, what were you thinking?
I was surprised. Obviously, to be honest with you, I haven't had much time to process it. So I'm still in the the first like shock reaction when something happens. You're like, oh, so I'm still in that phase right now. But yeah, I am surprised mostly with the existence removal, to be honest. When I was talking with him, I didn't have the feeling that he knew something like that was coming. I could be wrong. Then again, it was just a conversation between him and I. But obviously, the truth is that G2 wasn't really working as much as they expected it that it would. But what surprised me is, as you say, they had this rhetoric under the idea that it was going to be a long-term project, and they're going to take time to build their game together. Obviously, it seems like they changed their mind. Now, I have to say, from the outside, yes, it wasn't working at least as much as they wanted it to work. But I guess that makes some sense. The only question really behind that is Shock's going to be in-game leader again? How is it going to work? He has tried it in the past, hasn't really worked out so well. Like, to me, whenever it's not because it's existence, and people know I have like a special relation with him as a friend and everything. It's not about that. It's just whenever a team changes in-game leader, I feel like that's a huge change. Like, changing the in-game leader is something big. So is Shock's gonna be willing to go back to it? Because the reason they brought existence, a few months ago, was pretty clear. Said, yeah, we believe in his vision, we believe in the way that he wants to play, so we're gonna bring him back in. He has our trust. Few months later, they change him again. So that's a very big turn. Now, if Shox is comfortable and is sure that he's gonna be like efficient as an in-game leader, then I guess I can see the logic in that. Bringing in new blood, very like high skilled player. I think Lucky has been very impressive with the 3D Max. I know that Jax is a very skilled player. I played a little bit with him in Millennium back then, and if it wasn't for the fact that Jax is very loyal to his friends, I think he would have risen up faster in the ranks in the French scene. I know that he turned down a few opportunities in his career because he didn't want to, drop his friends. So I knew that Jax was promising. Lucky was playing really well with 3D Max. So yeah, if Shux is going to be in charge again and he feels confident about it, then I guess I can see the logic behind that, because it's true that at least frag-wise, Smith wasn't doing a really good job in G2 from the outside. Existence had a rough beginning. I kind of had the feeling, and that's just my opinion, but I feel like he picked it up individually speaking towards the end. I feel like he was much better in his numbers. He had much more impact individually, but the beginning was rough. Yeah, I don't really know what to say. Whenever something like that happens, I kind of lean back and I wait like a few weeks to see how the new iteration is going to turn out.
Yeah, if I can jump in here, like I think there's some French podcast a few days ago or something, and Lambert or Lambert or however people would understand me saying his name, I think he said that
Lambert, yeah.
this team doesn't play like an existence team, and like in the way that he wanted to apply that maybe Shox was pulling a lot of the strings and how the team wanted to play, and just like talking to them and just watching them play at events like at the major where I was able to like stand nearby. Obviously I don't understand French, but it seemed like Shox had a lot of influence in the way like they were playing, because he was talking a lot mid-round and like freeze time and stuff like that. So did you get any feeling that could be the case, that maybe existence, you said like he was removed as in-game leader, was he even maybe the full-time in-game leader, like 100% in this team?
Yeah, I think so. I also think that in contrast with the usual, myth and legend that existence is extremely controlling and everything, I think I have played many years with, I mean, I've played a long time with him, and I know that he functions better when he has a good co-leader with him, when he has people giving ideas and suggestions as to what is best they do in the game. And Shox is very good at it. And I think that was a given even at the beginning of this lineup, that Shox would always have a voice and that he would help him with the calling. Now, the proportion of it, I don't really know if it was planned to be as it turned out. I have no idea, but I'm pretty sure that when they got back together, it was clear that Shox was always going to have a voice, was always going to help with mid-round calling and suggestions. But the feelings, at least my feeling from watching G2 early on, and that was really the beginning of it, but it felt to me that they were trying to do something so perfect and pointy that if any detail goes wrong in the round, suddenly that looks foolish. That was the feeling I had watching them play some rounds. I could see the idea. I know these guys. I've played with most of them. I could see what I wanted to do, but there was always, either a person making a mistake, someone missing a shot, a timing that's not working, and in the end, it looks very bizarre, and you don't really understand what they're doing. And so maybe the problem was that they tried to go straight for the perfect play style instead of trying to do it simple and block by block, getting more and more complex in what you're trying to do. Because I had the feeling that they were trying to go straight for the best counter strike possible. And the truth is, there's so much process involved in it, and it's like a fine Swiss watch where everything has to work together for it to really work, and it wasn't the case. So rounds would just have you wouldn't understand what's happening. So that's the feeling I had from watching them play, at least at the beginning.
Do you think
it doesn't help when you have players not like being very good individually. That's like the magic fix for anything. If you have a good, like a star player, a player just like maybe what Vitality have with Zivu right now, they have like a guy that can clutch rounds that you shouldn't win, and that just like propels you the next level. If they were trying to do what you're saying right here, if you have someone like Smits that has been like the last 3 months have been pretty very, very bad, like comparing to any pro player, I feel like the stats have never been so bad for a player on that level. So if you have that in the team, then it's even harder to make it work, because any mistake you're going to be doing is going to just result in a lost round.
Oh, I agree. I think no matter how good your idea is, Counter-Strike is still about winning your duel. Right?
Yeah.
You can optimize what you're doing, you can have the best position, you can have the best timing, but for a round to work, sometimes you're supposed to kill one person, sometimes you have a position that requires you to kill two, and if you don't, then suddenly the logic doesn't make any sense. So I agree. I think Smith individually did not perform anywhere as good as was hoped from him. Then again, when they brought him back from being a coach, I thought they kind of accepted the idea that he would need time to come back to an acceptable level. I don't know if he did put the effort in it or not. I don't know. I have no inside information, but it is true that his impact individually was not nearly as good as for the level that they wanted to play.
Do you guys think that maybe they also kind of fell victim to the whole hype about teams being very tactical and the new rise of teams like Astralis, who are obviously so set up that everything works perfectly for them? I know they also have great individual skill, but do you think that this came at a time where the tactical CSGO team was the hot thing, and then you have Existence coming in and saying, hey, I'll join your team, we can make it perfectly tactical, because that's what I do, right? And then they just didn't account for, as you said, the individual skills still being needed to play in the top.
At least I think that was this Counter-Strike was always the Counter-Strike that Existence wanted to play.
Obviously,
he's always been the optimizing kind, trying to find new principle. For example, the eco where no one moves and they use it as a freeze time, and that he would always look for like loopholes and way to do better stuff that people hadn't thought of before. Obviously, right now Astralis is completely leading the way in that. They are redefining the meta as they play. But I don't think I don't think they fell victim to it. I think that was the Counter-Strike that they wanted to play.
No, I just mean like the G2 organization or Shox's way of building the team. Do you think what I mean is just that you didn't have this in-game leader who's been inactive for a while, and you want to build your team around him because you maybe think that's what the new meta is, and then you give him like supposedly loads of time to perfect it, and then it doesn't happen. When in reality they could have just maybe gone with, and I won't mention names, people who have better individual skill and build from there.
I would agree to some extent. I think the underlying conditions for G2 to work was there was two things for me. You needed Shux and Kenias to regularly perform at their best. That was clearly a given. When you take the lineup all together and you see the names on it, you understand that they need these two to show up. They need these two to play their best. I feel like Shux is probably the only one that has almost consistently showed up. Kenias was like either extremely good or a little bit lackluster. So, he was kind of doing the waves. I think Shux was pretty consistent, at least from the games I have watched. I haven't watched all the games. So that was one condition, was for the 2 stars to be true stars at all time. And then the other condition for me was that Buddy, Smith, and Existence would all level up at least individually and just do the minimum required from them in any given situation. I think Buddy had a very good start in the previous G2 when he joined. He was a huge surprise to me. I knew he was good with LDLC White before that, but I surely didn't expect him to be as solid as he was when he joined the previous G2. So I thought, okay, if this can transition into that G2, surely they could use a Buddy that's very solid, doesn't make that much mistake. He's happy to take the shadowy roles, in the sense he doesn't want to be, doesn't want to be flashy or have any crazy good positions. He just plays his bomb side and is very efficient at it. So they needed Buddy to be extremely strong, and they needed Existence and Smith to step up individually. Now I think that the beginning of Existence's G2 was really that was bad. That there's no way around it. His beginning as an individual in G2 was bad. But I know him. I know that the more he has to micromanage a team, the worse he is as a player. So I knew that eventually, as their game style kind of settles and they know what they want to do, and he doesn't have to micromanage so much, then I knew his level would rise. And I kind of feel like it happened. I think, as I said, I think individually he became better and better as the games were happening. And yes, Smith clearly did not deliver as much as they were needing him to. Because when you have Shux and Kenny together, and they are players that are pretty consistent and are star level or used to be star level, I mean, world class level, then all you need to do for the 3 others is just to fill in, do the minimum that's required of you. But it wasn't really the case. I think that was the main issue for me.
Yeah, I think we can draw the line and definitely say that the Smith's removal was warranted at this point, just based on its individual level and the amount of time that they gave him. It was 5 months or so. So I would say that that's out of the question, out of the discussion, that probably is a deserved move. As well as maybe people say that he's a mega support guy or whatever. But I also went to the flash assists, and he has 0.3 flash assists per 0.03. So he's above, in the lower tier of that category as well. So it's not like he's giving these mega great flashes for everyone to frag out. So it just seems that he was totally not cutting it for a team that wants to be, literally, that a team that has Shocks and Kenyas should be top 5 in the world, in my opinion. They're just great players, still show that they can be great players, maybe not all the time. So I think that was a definite move that should have just been done. But the Existence one is a lot harder, just because we don't know the inner workings of these teams, what's actually going on behind behind the scenes. So I feel like that Shocks thing is probably just him feeling that he can do a good enough job without Existence at this point, and then they're trying something new. But it's actually pretty weird that they ended up picking up players from 3D Max. That's a team that didn't really do much. I don't know, you probably know them a lot better. Okay, they've showed some online stuff potential in the last maybe year, but other than that, they literally have never been to even a minor. Actually, they did the last minor, but
yeah.
after except that, practically nothing. So it's a big dip, very deep into the scene. Why not pick up someone from LDLC or ex-Envy players that are free or something like that?
Well, that is a tough question. I mean, first of all, you mentioned LDLC. If you put aside the money for a second, then I think they are in a pretty good, situation as a team.
Yeah.
So obviously, I guess G2 as an organization has much more financial power than LDLC. I don't doubt that. But besides that, when you're in LDLC's position right now, you are having the best results you ever had with that lineup. Everything is looking great. Do you really want to take a risk and leave now? That I don't know if they approach these players. I have no idea. Now,
but that's also the problem from the G2 side. Like, if results have been this bad, like for literally since they came the team to put the team together, then why haven't maybe moves been done? Like a month earlier, you could get LDLC players, and now they had their best run ever. Now, of course, you can't literally, no way they're going to be leaving after like quarterfinals in Chicago. So it's bad timing.
Yeah, it is. But I think when it comes to 3D Max, you're right. They haven't really proven that much, at least as a team. They have made some shockwaves, and at the minor, people were suddenly realizing, oh, wait, we need to pay attention to these guys. But I would say, individually speaking, definitely these two can play at a higher level than they were playing before. That would be my opinion. Both Jax and Lucky are very promising. They were very efficient at their level. Now, I think that the challenge in here is for Shucks, Kenny, and Buddy to, kind of teach them. Like, look, you've been playing for a certain amount of time against these teams. Now we're gonna play against these teams, and this is how it works. And these are the mistakes you shouldn't do, and this is how we play. And if you take that and then you add the raw talent of the two players, then I guess that could work. But I think it's also part of a kind of a recycling, not recycling, because recycling means you use the same thing, but like a renewal sort of the top players. It's a natural, I think it's a natural evolution to have people piercing from sub top and from lower tier of Counter-Strike, just given a chance to play at best, because they were doing great in 3D Max. I think when I watched them playing individually, they were doing great. So I can understand the logic to think, okay, these people are doing pretty good at their level. We believe that they can actually compete against better players if we take them, and if they have the right attitude, they have the potential, they have the talent, we can teach them, and together we can do something better. So I can understand the logic behind that. Now you're talking about free agent. I have no idea. That's their decision. I don't know if they talk with people that are currently free. There's always the question when you've been without a team for a long time, how good are you still right now? Playing Pug is one thing, playing team game is not the same. How disciplined have you been with your personal training if you've been off for a few months? Those are questions that you need to ask yourself when you're a team and you pick a player. But I don't know who they talked to before that, so I cannot really give you any. I can't give you any reasoning because I don't really know the path they went through.
Can you tell us a little bit about just, I mean, with the knowledge you have, who are these guys then? Because I was looking a little bit about on their stats and kind of figuring out, because honestly I don't know much about the French scene below tier 1 and 2. Obviously they had some pretty good ratings at the minor, actually, both these players, especially I think Lucky. Who are they, and in what way could they actually fit in if they were to?
So to be honest, I know Jax way better than I know Lucky. Lucky, I mean, I don't really know him as a person. I have met him once, played a little bit with him, but I can't really comment on him. The only thing I can say is whenever I watched him play, he looked skilled. He looked like he wasn't doing many mistakes, which is always like a huge quality as a player, when you don't just give up round by making a huge positional mistake. He seems like a rather clever player who has some game sense, definitely skill. So that's about it, what I can tell you about Lucky. Now Jax I've played with a little bit when I was in Millennium, and he's a really nice guy. He's probably one of the best person I've met in the French community overall. He's a really nice guy. At least with me, he had absolutely top-notch attitude. He's very skilled. He has that. You could see the way he moves his crosser. He has that Rob style crosser placement. It's very horizontal, vertical. Yeah, I don't know if it makes sense what I'm saying, but I notice
very
it when someone
and
has
pre-aiming
exactly.
and everything.
The way he peaks his angle is very mechanical, a little bit like Shocks. When you see Shocks in a clutch and you see he's scanning left and right and it's very clean. I always felt that Jax had this. He had this extreme precision in his aim. So yeah, I mean, when you take it, very good person, very motivated, skilled. I mean, for me, that's probably enough to give him a shot if I were the one to decide, you know.
There's also like the question about Lucky he's like a hybrid player. So I went into his stats. He has like 20% op kills, and the main opper of the team, which is Maka, I think, had like 30%. So it was like fairly shared. It's not like this guy was like a very secondary opper. It's kind of, I guess, like switched around a bit. So is he gonna be taking on that role in G2? So, and pushing out Shocks? What do you think about like Shock's secondary opping? Is that a thing that he needs to do, or is he better just stuck with the rifle?
I really don't know. I think it depends on the game plan that they put together and the position that Shocks is going to play. That's about it, because Shocks was always a rather efficient secondary op, and he would take the op in certain positions. So yes, if Shocks is still playing the same CT positions, for example, then I don't see why he wouldn't do it. Shocks is very clever. He's good with the op. He knows how to position himself. There is no reason that he wouldn't do it. But if you bring Lucky on board, then you have, as you say, you have a third possibility, which is always nice, because I don't know how they're going to put their play style together, but it might happen that Shocks is going to play more of the like huge rotational role. If he's going to be an in-game leader, I think that's what he wants to do. He wants to be able to shape up the defenses and have the very influential positions. So in some scenarios, having an op is not a good thing. I don't know if you think about Inferno. If you're going to play the rotation from B to A, you're probably not going to pick up an op. That doesn't really make sense if you're going to run around the map. So I think Shocks should not be pushed out of this position. I think it's a proficient secondary op, and if the position makes sense, why not have him play that position? But the real discussion is, how are they organize their positions? Then, and based on that, I think having Lucky in it gives you more freedom. You can say, okay, Shocks wants to play this position. It's fine. We can have a secondary opera in Lucky in this other position that he doesn't want to play anymore. So it opens up possibilities, but I wouldn't push Shocks out of this secondary role. I think he's doing rather great at it.
So a guy in chat is like, Lucky is the new Kugli hybrid second opera, but Lucky doesn't cheat.
Okay.
I knew that was going to happen.
That's good for you to hear, isn't it, Maniac? I guess.
Yeah, it's very good. I really love to talk about it. I love when people come and ask me, "Hey, how do you feel when Cali got backbanned?" Now, thank you very much for reminding me of it. I had forgotten about it.
I just saw
But
him
no,
on my
comes with the territory.
On my Twitter feed, like 2 hours ago or something, with the eFrog team. That was also like, that team exists. That's pretty funny for me, at least.
We were just talking about that the other day, actually, when we talked about the Forsaken thing and the legacy that he will probably have, and his teammates also. And we were kind of wondering about that. So what's it going to be like for his teammates going forward? Will they ever be able to shed it? I guess you can kind of give some insight to that. I know we don't have to talk about that for hours, but I guess it's something that also goes with you no matter what you do, right?
Yes. So sorry, what input do you want me to give exactly?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, what's that like, not being able to shed it, even though it has nothing to do with you? And it was like, what, 4 or 5 years ago?
Well, to be honest,
when people come up and ask you that, and we are now doing it too, how does that make you feel?
I'm gonna be honest. I made peace with that. I have accepted the fact that I'm never gonna know what really happened, because that's the case, right? I mean, I don't know if people realize, but me as a person, I will never know what happened. I will never know in what game, at what event. This is, was it every event? Was it not every event? It is insane. It is insane to think that someone was sitting next to me on an event, might have been cheating right next to me, and I didn't see it. So, but I have accepted the fact that I'm never gonna know, and it happened, and there's nothing I can do about it. So, why would I give it so much energy and so much emotion into it? Like I'm basically past that point. I'm okay. People come to me and talk about it.
Yeah.
I just answer like, calmly and nicely. It's not something I get mad over, but it was insane, because I'm an old school player, even though I'm not so old. I hope. I mean, 28. It's okay. I still have time. I'm an old school player in that sense that, to me, cheating was 3 things. Either you speed hack, it's very fast, it's very easy to see. Either you do the spin wheel and you headshot everyone, that's also very easy to see, or you just wall hack straight out. that was the three category of cheats that I knew, because when you play Counter-Strike 1.6, those were the only thing that can happen. So when someone comes to me and say, now you can have 5% help, you can have 6% help, you can have this and that, I just don't know anything about it. That's just the technology has gone without me. So yeah, it's pretty mind blowing.
I think for all intents and purposes, you should probably be glad, and this is also something we talked about in the Forsaken episode, that the cameras didn't catch you actually looking at his screen as he was being caught. Because I feel like that's probably something that's just going to add to the whole legacy of, oh, this guy was also there,
Yeah, I agree.
The zoom in on his face that so many memers made. I mean, I think it's probably a good thing, and this is what we also said, that this was off screen at least, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, so
I think before we move off of G2, I think
definitely.
one last topic we can touch on is Malik as their coach, because actually someone mentioned it in chat and I didn't really consider it before. He was coaching Envy, and then he went to coach 3D Max for like a period of a month or something around the minor, and then he got signed for G2 obviously, and now he picked up 2 players from that team. I mean, G2 picked up 2 players from that team, but it feels like there is some connection in the, like, perhaps it was a coaching / organizational push a bit to get these exact 2 teams and make the changes and stuff like that. Is that, like, actually I just want to ask you a bit about Malik, since you've been around for long, he's been around for long. Like, what is he like as a coach, or as a guy in the CS?
So first of all, as a person, I think Malik is a really good person, and it's not something that I say lightly. I think he's a very mature guy. He knows how to talk to people. I think he knows how to treat people. He knows how to handle the emotions. I think he's a tremendous asset, at least when it comes to managing the human side of things. And that's definitely needed because that Counter-Strike is also like a psychological game, and it's a game where you need to cooperate with people. Sometimes conflicts arise. So in that sense, I'm sure that Malik is a really good person to have, and he's a big asset. Also, I think tactically speaking, he has a pretty good understanding of the game. I don't know to what extent he has impact on the tactical aspects of things in G2, so I couldn't comment on that. I think he has a pretty good idea, and I think he's an educated observer. Like, he's educated enough to be an observer of the team and pinpoint, okay, this is a problem. Like, we have problem in this department of our game. We have problem in these scenarios. I think he can do that. He has the understanding for it. But really, his big asset is his ability to talk to people and handle people and like tackle the challenges that come with having 5 people always together, always working together, playing together. There's always going to be conflicts, and not only between players, but also like a player can have like a drop in confidence, or frustration can come. And if you are lucky enough to have a guy here with who you can talk freely, and he's going to listen to you, he's going to welcome you and talk with you, I think that's a really big plus. And in that sense, I think Malik adds a lot of value to a team.
So moving on, but still, I guess, staying within the limits of discussing G2, because everything could have been up in the air about this. There are a lot of guys mentioning some names in the chat that cannot go unnoticed when we talk about the French scene. It's 2 names that are inevitably going to be mentioned once you say the words French scene, and that is Q and Scream, obviously. Let's start out with Kyoshima, because also today was some news that he apparently joined the Cloud9 CC roster. So that move is kind of coming closer to being permanent, it looks like. And the question always is from chat, and also from our comments usually, is that why wouldn't G2 pick him up? Why wouldn't any French team pick him up? Why he's been inactive for so long in French teams, and then all the talk about his personal relations and all his own ambitions and problems with those. So if this is to come into fruition, how would you feel about that, or what's your take on him kind of moving away for good from the French scene?
Well, I think it's part of the nowadays Counter-Strike that things have become international. It's something that has changed over the past few years. Before it was hard to see and conceive, but now it is a thing that whenever you speak in good enough English to play Counter-Strike with other people, then you can do it. So in that sense, why wouldn't Kiyoshima give it a go? I think Cloud9 had a surprisingly good showing in Copenhagen. I really didn't expect that much from them. Obviously, it's hard to know if it was just the heat of the moment or if there is actually something to do with that project. But the Kiyoshima, I think, had a really good showing individually. Now, my opinion is that, and it's just my opinion, it might actually be completely wrong, but I think that Kiyoshima is someone that pretty easily gets affected by the climate that is in a team. How is the atmosphere in a team? How are people getting along together? How is work done together? I think he can be affected by that. And maybe in Cloud9, he found people with who he feels comfortable. That would be my guess. Now, Cloud9 as an organization probably has a lot to offer. Um, I don't know if G2 came to him or not, and I also do not know the legal standpoint of Cloud9 and Kiyoshima. I know he was with them for a little bit of time as a trial. I don't know how bounding that is. I have no idea, so I can't comment on that. But I mean, why not? Why not? I think he had a very good showing in Copenhagen. Now with all the teams he's been in, Envious, FaZe, now Cloud9, I think he adds a lot of value to a team in terms of experience, in terms of having played with different players, different very good players. If you listen and if you pick up on your environment, you can surely draw some conclusions from it, from playing with FaZe and the players of their caliber. It's obviously going to bring you something as a player if you at least pay attention to your environment. So in that sense, yeah, I think Kyo can be an asset. He could have been an asset in G2. Yeah, I think in that scenario, you could bring him in the team as a very solid rifler. Why didn't do it, I don't know. I
It feels
have
like
absolutely no
for
idea.
me, maybe the only reasoning would be that they wanted like maybe not young because Jax is 26, right? But at the same time, they just wanted hungry players, like players that weren't at the top until now. So they want guys that are going to be grinding all day long. So maybe that also motivates the other guys in the team because it's like the classic Kenny S issue that he's always like his motivation drops, goes up and down, that he plays less, plays more, all of that going on. So I think they just wanted two guys that will be easy to mold and very motivated and like maybe just easy to get along with, like these guys will just listen to anything that Shock says and they'll just do it and that's it. So I think that's kind of the feeling and what G2 wanted to do with this move. I hope so, at least that kind of makes sense, but knowing it's the French scene, it could be literally anything.
What you're saying is he wanted to adopt more kids?
Yeah, I don't know. That's also fine.
Actually, there was a user kind of touching on this. You don't understand that the French scene needs new blood, hungry for trophies and prizes at the top level. And then he goes on to say that Kiyoshima definitely doesn't give a shit anymore. I don't know about the last part, but I guess we can discuss the first part. How's your look on that? The hunger within the French scene, Mathieu?
Well, I think Professeur CS made a very good point about it.
Oh God.
About the fact that when you're an up and coming player, at least I had that feeling. Probably a lot of people also do. You have that feeling of you're never satisfied with where you're at the moment. You think of all the amazing events that are happening and you're not participating. So it kind of gives you that extra energy to whenever you're done with your team, maybe you're going to go and look at your demos, you're going to play more deathmatch than you used to. On your free time in the weekend, you're going to play even more. So yeah, I think there is a connection there. I think once you've been at the top for the longest time, it's not easy to stay motivated enough that you do more than what's expected from you. I think that's what people need to understand is that if you want to be a top player, unless you're just a a genius, but most of the time you have to put everything you have into it. I mean, not later than in Copenhagen, I was asking simple like, why are you so good? And the guy just tells me I play all the time. That's it. So there's really nothing
That's
to
a good
it.
answer.
Yeah, I was hoping for kind of some sick secret that never arrived. He just told me he plays all the time. But yeah, I think it is important. And I think when you bring new players in the team, they can influence the dynamic of the team in the sense that, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Well, I'm gonna play. Let's meet up on Saturday. We can do this together. We can go over tactics together. We can watch our demos. We can pug or do whatever that is. But when you have people who come with that hunger and that energy, it transfers to everyone. Just as much as having someone that's not motivated is going to influence everyone, but I think the positivity can also spread to people. And when you bring new players who have never really tasted it, I mean, the 3D Max guys at the minor, they were all impressed. Oh, this is the player lounge. This is how we played. It's amazing. The organization is so nice, and they had stars in their eyes, and I think that's refreshing. And you mentioned Kenya's and his motivation. Yes, that can help. You have someone come in your team that's going to give everything he has because he never tasted it. He never had it. He never went to crazy event. He never traveled the world, stay in a nice hotel, go to the crazy event on the big stage. He never did that. So they're going to do everything they can to do it. So in that sense, yes, you bring younger players. They bring that passion with them, I think.
I kind of like
It's
that
just
analysis.
like dazed off a bit.
No, I was just thinking if there were any kind of parallels to the guys you were mentioning there, any other stories of the hunger paying off. And I know I talk about Danish players all the time, Prof, but you'll have to just level with me. But like you can kind of see the same thing with Magis joining Astralis, right? Obviously, he did win an event or two, and he did play at the top level. It's not to say that he was like a noob before he was picked up, but I think that's kind of the perfect image of someone just being really hungry, maybe being a little left out, maybe being a little misunderstood, or at least having to be guided the right way, and then just finding the exactly right roster to go in. And then as you said, the organization behind him and the coach and all that, who can kind of put him in his place because he also needs that, and then it pays off, right? You see him just go off.
But there's one part of that I'm not sure G2 has, is the organizational backing and like the whole system of treating players as athletes. I mean, I'm not saying G2 is a bad organization in any way. They've been successful in a lot of esports, so they are a good organization overall. You can't deny that. But I'm not sure that they go that in depth to make sure all of the players are like at their peak physically, mentally, and all of that stuff. And that's what maybe these two players will miss and not have such a good time adapting as like Magisk did. Even Magisk had a lot of more experience and all of that, but just coming in, it was like a perfect fit in a month or something. So yeah, just my opinion on that.
There was actually someone in the HLTV comments, Mathieu, that wanted to know about new guys also in the French scene. He kind of had this theory that they weren't really good at taking them in and bringing them up, maybe for the reasons that Prof said here. Do you think that's really true? I mean, when I look at it, I think the scene is huge enough, and that there are enough teams below the tier 1 that should actually be enough to be proving grounds. And at least you see LDLC coming out now. But what's your view on the way that the French scene kind of brings up new players?
I think that nowadays the gates are way more open than they were a few years back. I think this criticism would have been absolutely valid maybe 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, where the top level was an extremely close and tight circle, and it was really hard to get into it because people would basically just play together, maybe change some lineup, but it would always stay like a very tight group of people. In the recent years, I feel like young and new players have been given the chance. I think you saw Devil join Envious when it was in LDLC. You saw Body join G2. Now, obviously, you have Zero who's just come in. We have rumors of Lucky and Jax joining G2 now. So I think the gates are opening. New players are given a chance. And as you say, I think it's for a team, for a scene to be flourishing, you need the teams below the very high caliber, you need them to also perform. Just like in tennis, maybe they don't perform at the Grand Chelem and the Roland Garros, but they perform in Challenger tournament. So when you have 3D Max making waves at the minor, surprising people, when now you have, LDLC, they kind of just jumped into the other categories. I don't think they are a very good example now, but still making good runs in MDL, in qualifiers and such. These teams, they can have success together. And if they have success together, they completely burst out as a team, and suddenly they are in the top scene, and that's kind of the Cinderella story. That's what you hope for. When you're together and you have a good group of people, you just hope you're gonna all go together. But if it doesn't happen, but the team is having good result, then it gives a good spotlight for individuals to go through that and go to the bigger fishes, the bigger teams. So I don't think that the French scene is closed at the moment. It's probably as open as, more open than it ever was. So I wouldn't really agree with that, but it's just my opinion, obviously.
So I guess there is one player that we'll have to kind of talk about before moving on from the general topic of the French scene situation, and that is Scream. Obviously, still without a team, even though he was standing in for Fnatic in New York, and also I know had some teams that he played with, some mixed teams. Where do you guys think he stands in all of this? Obviously left out. I don't even want to make that joke, but it just came out of my.
But you just did.
It's
too late.
It was bound to happen, right? The one time you talk about the French, like I said before, his name is always mentioned.
But
it's always like
French.
The magical solution to whatever team. And even in our chat now, it's like they don't even talk about Scream, and I'm just what should we say about him, really? Yeah.
I have really limited knowledge. I have no idea. We used to kind of know each other, play against each other for the longest time, but now I have no idea what he has become. Obviously, I know he still plays, and you can always see here and there his clips on Twitch. On Twitter when he goes baller and just destroys everyone with one tap. So it seems like the skill is always there. Mechanically speaking, he was always one of the best. There's nothing to say about it. But as a player, as a team, like as a member of a team, what he gives to a team or not, what he invests in a team or not, then I'm really not in position to comment. I didn't know how things were running in NVS. I don't know why he's in NVS anymore. What were the reasons behind it? Because I think individually speaking, at least he was kind of performing when he was in NVS. I think his numbers were pretty good. So at least he was having the impact as an individual. But I have no idea. There must be something else that I don't know.
It just seems like everyone just gave up on him in the French scene. He missed out on a couple of shuffles now, and if he missed on these and people went for like lower tier players, then it seems like he just won't get a chance anytime soon. Like, what has to happen for them? He literally has to go. I see Nell in the chat is actually saying that he's going to stand in for 3D Max now that these two players left together with Haji. So I feel like he needs to go and play like 140 ratings in and out and like MDL and stuff like that for people to at least even consider him in Vitality or G2. Because if he missed out on all of these chances, at some points he was playing like pretty good and still didn't get in the better team in the shuffle. So I don't know. Seems like everything is, I don't know, just cut off Scream from the French scene.
Oh, I agree. It seems like the top tier is probably have the doors closed at the moment. I think he has two big categories of possibility. One is going international, and maybe you're not gonna get into, you're not gonna just enter a top 10 straight into a top 10 team. That's not going to happen at the moment. But there are up and coming international teams that he could probably join, and with his tremendous skill, he would probably bring something with him to them. And I think his English is efficient enough to play in an international team. That's one thing. The other thing is gonna have to put your ego deep down in your pocket and go play with lower teams in French and in France, and just as you say, just show that I still got it. I'm gonna play with these people a few months. I'm gonna show everyone that I destroy all my opponents at this level. So hey guys, look at me. I can still do it. So if he still wants to go competitive and make a run at it, which I don't know if that's the case, right? But if he does, then he's gonna have to put the efforts in. I think now the easy roads are closed, as you said.
Yep.
All right, so we're gonna be kind of talking about the French scene, but in a different way now, because let's move on a little bit to IEM Chicago.
We skipped Vitality though.
We
have to
actually, I
touch on
wanted to say,
Vitality
I
for a
wanted to
bit.
save that for a little bit later because I want to talk
okay.
about LDLC
Okay.
too, and there's a good reason for it. But that we're gonna be returning to NBK's team in a short while. But I wanted to just go into IEM first, what happened there, and we're also going to be talking about LDLC. But there's no real getting around who won the event and in what fashion and how it all went down once again. Liquid not being able to show up in a grand final, but then again having Astralis on the other side of the stage, which really means oftentimes means you don't really have a chance all in all, right? What else can we really say about this team now? we talked about this, Prof. Actually, we have to mention them almost every episode, right? Because they will always be in contention for the win in the next event that they are featured in, and it's hard to really to say more about why it is that they're winning and what it is that they're doing right that other teams don't. But so I guess we kind of have to throw the question to you then, Mathieu. I guess because we've said it a bunch of times now. What do you think when watching this team going and winning like they did yesterday?
Are you talking about Liquid right now, or are you talking about Astralis? Well, as you say, I think Astralis has been a topic of discussion for the longest time, and I feel like we have almost all said everything that there's to say about them. But the essence of it is that they probably play the most optimized Counter-Strike there is at the moment. That's pretty clear. That they make the best out of their mid-round decision. They make the best out of their power play. They make very few mistakes, and I think IEM Chicago or at least has shown a new facet of this Astralis, which is that they are able to win even when things are not looking so great for them. It's one thing to just destroy everyone when you're in a good day and then get destroyed when you're in a bad day. But I think Astralis have managed to kind of survive their difficult period that they might have had during IEM Chicago, and kind of, when I saw them in Chicago, I was thinking about Novak Djokovic playing tennis, and you can see he has a bad day, but his defense is still really good. So maybe he doesn't hit the crazy shots, but he still makes it so hard for you to win a point because his defense is really good, and maybe he's not going to go for an insane passing or whatever that is, but he's still like the basics are still so good that it's hard for you to score a point. But that I had that feeling with Astralis during the tournament. They hit some rough patches and some maps you could think, oh, this is going bad, but they still had this safety net and they were able to win when the conditions were not so good for them. So that's extremely scary, because then you end up in a situation where Astralis is winning when they are not playing their best, and when they're playing their best, there is just no discussion. There's no discussion at the moment. No one can beat Astralis when they are playing their best. That is, that you have to say that's pretty much, there's no way around it. But I think we touched it when we were talking about just G2 as an organization. I think Astralis is a good example to follow. Just how players should behave, how they should bond together, the balance they should have in their life, how they should practice, how they should work as a team. They are setting examples, and they are creating kind of a new reference as to how a team should proceed and how a team should work together. And on top of that, so they already have that very strong structural, and then they have 5 extremely good players. So they have everything at the moment. I think they work fine as a squad. I think their game plan is the best at the moment, and they have 5 extremely good players. So I think that is just the recipe of their success.
Yeah. I think what kind of set it in stone for me was our guy Peter, who gives out the MVP medal, who's like, I don't even know what to do at this point, because his main point was this MVP medal was Twist to lose and no one's to win. So, which means Twist was obviously looking like the strongest contender to take it if they hadn't played so bad in the final. And when it came to Astralis, he's like, okay, well, almost any of the guys can actually take it this time, but then I'll go with the most consistent one, which makes sense. But you could always feel also the kind of fatigue setting in, even when giving out the MVP medal for events.
Yeah, I feel like one of the cool things about Astralis being so good is that now all other teams are trying to follow their kind of blueprint of working as a team, like having more sports psychologists. That's like, I think they were the first one to bring that in, and then like the way they have a coach control the roster, make changes, maybe not, of course, in real, like in the actual situation, players always will have a say, but they make it as an outside decision coming from the coach. The coach picks a new guy to come in and all of that. I feel like that is a good move for just CS in general, to just avoid like these internal stupid politics between players and internal in
French
the scene. What? French scene? Yeah, that's a good one. So perhaps even G2 are trying to like follow that right now, and that's kind of a positive in my eyes. But also just about like Astralis at this tournament, it felt like, at least for me, that they were doing a bit more like risky plays, aggressive plays, stuff that you wouldn't usually see from them. And it's just so hard when they add something like that, that you kind of don't expect the device to like peak mid on Inferno for like 40 seconds into the round, but he still is there, and then he kills you. And it's like, what the fuck? That's not the optimal play, because someone could come from boiler or kill him or stuff like that. But they just add another layer of unpredictability, and that's so cool to see.
I want to actually talk to you a little bit about that, because coming back to your degree in psychology, actually, Mathieu, is that something that you considered looking at how this works? Because we've been told for a while now, from the players at least, that the psychology, what's the singular noun for that? Psychologists in a team is actually
psychologists.
Is actually who helps them a lot. Do you think that's something that you could potentially see yourself doing with your degree and your knowledge about CS?
Yeah, I guess so. I think in many regards, a CS:GO squad is like work team. You know, it's 5 people who have the same goal, who have somewhat specialized departments. Someone is going to be an opper, someone is going to be the B anchor, someone is going to be an in-game leader. So they have different roles. But for the team to work, they need to work together. They need to set up like objectives and goals. They need to have a certain work ethic. They need to know how to communicate and how to communicate best, because I think communication is something that a lot of team can do better. You know, you might not think about it when you just watch people play, but the way you give your information, the tone you give to it, the words that you use, how are people talking together, like a bomb site, how, like, there's so many things to do. Like, I would probably need like a 10-hour podcast just to explain the communication and just map it, and for people to realize how optimal it can be. And, you know, for that reason, I miss the team speaks when teams were playing, because I used to love listening to that. But so I'm training off. I'm sorry, but yeah, I think as I said, a squad is they have a common objective. They have roles. There's going to be communication issues. There's going to be interpersonal issues. So in many regards, having, because I have a degree in work psychology very precisely. So in that sense, yeah, I think a lot of the concepts and the tools that I have, you know, learned during my degree, they can definitely apply to a team of Counter-Strike.
Can we hire this guy, Prof, do you think? Could we bring him on to better the work environment in HLTV?
In HLTV? I don't think so. He'll probably get fired by Martin in like 10 minutes or something, because he'd be the worst offender of like everything. So then it wouldn't make sense for him to like be the boss and then be actually like criticized all the time. And then, yeah, I don't think it would work.
We can talk about it after the podcast.
Of course.
Always looking for new opportunities. Let's talk a little bit about your old team, who were also present in Chicago and actually maybe made the biggest surprise, or were the biggest surprise of the team, LDLC. Do we say .com? Do I have to say that?
No, that's just say team.
That is actually, yeah. Who obviously did very well, going up against Liquid and only actually going out 2-1 to them at the end. How was that for you, watching your old team go that far, and a French team at that?
I mean, that was crazy. You know, that was crazy, because I kept being surprised after every game, because, you know, they were in that situation where basically every game they win is a surprise if you consider the context, if you consider who they are and who they go up against. I was surprised at every point in the tournament, and it was really nice to see, I have to say. And I think the reason why I was very happy for them is because, you know, my career as a player is over, and I'm at peace with that, and I'm very happy with what I'm doing right now. So I have the luxury of just being happy for them. Because if I were still a player right now, I would say, damn, I left the team and they are doing better than we ever did when I was in that squad with existence. But the truth is, I'm happy for them, and I think the squad is coming together. I think Amanek and Devodivek are bringing a lot to the team in terms of firepower. I mean, I always knew that these guys were skilled. That was never a question for me. Apparently, I have read somewhere that Amanek is helping out Alex with the in-game calling. I'm not sure that's true, but I have read that somewhere. So it just feels to me that they have found something that works. Now, I have to say, I don't want to be a killjoy at all. I'm very happy for them. But the one surprise is one thing. Being able to do it again at another event when people take you more, like way more seriously, and actually really prepare for you, and that's where we're gonna see, do they have depth in their game? I had the feeling that their game side was pretty deep, and that every game was not just a copy paste, like a copy paste of the previous game. I feel like they had some depth to their game. But when they're gonna go at the event, the next event they're gonna go to, people are gonna take them seriously and they're gonna prepare for it. And for me, that's gonna be the real test. If the next event they go to, they impress as much as they did this event, well, I mean, they belong to the big boys club for sure.
I was actually just looking up their ranking just to see if we'd updated it, and it's a kind of, it's a pretty nice uptick. Let's say that to put it mildly. Take a look at this.
That's insane.
They're number 12 now, and also off topic, but Virtus Pro is no longer in the top 30. First time in literally ever, I guess.
Ooh.
Which is kind of a sad story, but
Polish
that's
scene,
for another time.
Polish scene episode when?
Yeah. Just like talking about LDLC, I think a weird thing is, maybe you can fill me in on that, is Alex's playstyle actually, because he's calling, but as you said, he's semi-calling with Amanek. There was an interview on our site as well, where he said there's a kind of a weird vibe around that, because sometimes he calls and then sometimes Amanek calls, and then mid-match they swap. So that's something that's definitely going to be an issue, I feel, like long term. It doesn't seem like balanced out at all. It just seems kind of random at the moment, just how he described it. But just his playstyle, he does a lot of these mega aggressive, very risky moves that kind of either they pay out and then they win the round off of it. He gets like 2 kills because he pushes, not really pushing a smoke, maybe just finding weird timings in cutting off rotations and stuff like that, or whatever. Is that something that he's always been doing? I feel like if people actually paid attention to him, they would kind of expect that and really shut him down a lot.
Well, the thing with Alex, because I played with him a little bit more than a year, I think that individually speaking, he always had a rather good game sense. He was one of these players that in any given situation could almost always find a way to optimize what he was doing. He's that kind of guy. He's in a smoke. There's 2 people to his left, 1 people to his right, and he knows. He had that instant intuition on how to play the situation. So individually speaking, I always knew that he understood the game. He literally felt the game. It's not only understanding, it's feeling it, and he always had that. But when we were together in LDLC, he wasn't really so good at taking his own perspective and turning it into a team suggestions, because it's one thing to feed the game, it's another to be able to communicate it to your team and go from your feeling to an actually explicit solution that you can offer to people. Okay, this is how they play, we should do that, and explain it simply. So he probably stepped up in his game in that regard, because if you're an in-game leader, this is basically your whole job. It's transforming your idea into something that everyone understands what to do. So in that sense, I think he probably improved, because in LDLC, when I was playing with him, that was not his strong suit. I also agree with what you just said. I wasn't really aware of this situation with Amanek, kind of yo-yo situation where it goes from left to right, and I think that's going to be, or that can be, a big issue when it comes to consistency, because that's a scenario where when everything is working, you feel, oh, that's amazing, but then when things are not working, how do you do if you don't have like a certain consistency in the way that you work as a team? I think it's probably going to impact the results. But that's one of the things I'm waiting for them. No, I'm not waiting for it, because I'm not hoping for it to happen, but I'm curious as to how they're going to react when they hit the rough patch, because since they have been together as a squad, it feels like they have only gone upwards, and I'm very happy for them. But when things go wrong, How is the squad going to behave as persons, as players, as in-game leader, and the whole staff? That's going to be a big question. I think that's going to be a big test for them once again to see if they are truly a part of the big teams at the moment.
Also going to be interesting to kind of wait and see which big events they're going to go to, right? Because I think the next one they could have qualified for was ECS finals in Arlington, but they're bottom of the table. With that said, a lot of games still to be played. I think they are missing like 8 or something. It's pretty.
They played like the least number, I think, of ECS games, but just because overall, I think they've been one of the most active teams. They played like, I opened Emanek's stats for like the last 3 months, and he had 110 maps played or something like that, which is insane. Literally a map every day, more than that actually.
So like what my thinking is just that, so they did well at IEM, but there's gonna be a time before we're actually gonna be seeing them again. I mean, most likely at a big event. So what do you do with a result like that? Like, if you were actually the psychologist in LDLC now and not the player, what do you say to them?
Well, first of all, I think their result at IEM will probably have some like direct consequences. Maybe they're gonna get some invites to, like, for example, maybe the DreamHack Opens, which are in general just a little bit more open to, pun intended, absolutely not, which are just a little bit more open to, that kind of teams, promising teams who are upcoming. So in that sense, maybe they're gonna get straight invites for that. Also, going up the ranking, which will mean that they will go into close qualifier rather frequently instead of having to battle through open qualifiers, which we know, or I know as a player, are a nightmare to go through. So they're gonna skip that part, probably get a lot of close qualifier invite if they stay, that top 15 ranking. So it's gonna have a lot of good consequences, positive consequences for them. Now, I think if I was the psychologist, I would probably remind them that it's one thing to have a very good tournament, but then what you do with it is very important as well, that you actually stay very hungry and very demanding with yourself, because one of the psychological trap of doing very well is to think that, okay, that's it, we've done it. Now we play very good Counter-Strike. Now we are a very good team. That can be a double-edged sword, because maybe you don't put as much thirst into it as you were before. So I think it's important for them to stay extremely focused, extremely demanding with themselves, even though they had a very good tournament and they proved a lot of people that you had to respect them to some extent. And the other thing is, now that they have had this kind of crazy run, taking a map off of Liquid, no one expected that from them. How are they going to react if they have very bad results? Because now suddenly they have lived through that. They have beaten good teams in best of 3. They have played on the stage, or did they play on the stage? I don't think. Yeah, they did.
Actually, not, because
they
the
didn't play.
Quarterfinal was
Okay, you're right.
in studios.
So they didn't get to the stage. They played, like, they reached the playoffs, sort of a super big tournament. How do you react when you lose an open qualifier against Bob123? That's really hard. Psychologically speaking, it's really hard. You go from IEM Chicago quarterfinal to losing an open qualifier. So it has challenges. Obviously, it's a very good thing. Their result in Chicago is amazing, but it has challenges going forward, and it's going to be on the staff and on the players to tackle them well.
Yeah, there was also, actually, when you mentioned the staff, there was one, I don't know who put out the tweet, but someone from LDLC mentioning something along the lines that they have some advanced software coded just for them by some of the guys from the management or something like that just does analysis of other teams through demos. I'm not sure what it is because they didn't explain, but that really seems kind of interesting as well. Like, I'm not sure where it's going to go, but if they have something like that, that can help them actually do well at big events, but it won't help you against like Bob123 in the open qualifier, because you don't know who it is and how they play. And even if you do, you don't have time. You're just like playing game after game after game after game after game. So that's a totally different, as you said, totally different ball game. But yeah, it's I feel like, I don't know, on one side they are the best French scene at the moment based on the results. I don't think anyone can actually disprove that. There's literally nothing to go on for Vitality or G2 to say like that they're better. But I feel like it's going to be very hard for them to keep this up. It's going to be like decent downfall to like top 20, 30 in the next month or so for this team. That's just my feeling right now.
I mean, it's tough to say what's going to happen, but I think it's always harder to confirm a surprise than to actually surprise.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. A lot of teams, maybe not a lot, but some teams have had these tournaments where you say, "Wow, what was that result? That was insane," and actually just slowly fade back into darkness, because it is actually, it's different to go to a tournament having nothing to lose. Every game you play is a bonus. Your preparation is usually better than your opponent because team have a limited time to prepare a tournament. If they're gonna face Astralis, Liquid, and LDLC, well, obviously the time they invest in the preparation is gonna be different depending on who they're gonna face. So when you go to an event, you have nothing to lose. You go with your preparation, you play to the max, and an amazing run happens. That's one thing, and it's awesome. Then you go to another tournament, and suddenly people look at you in a very different way, and they know what you have done in the past. They actually go in detail in your playstyle, and this is where you see how deep your playbook is. Because when I was looking at LDLC play, most of the time it felt like their A plan was working, in the sense that they had rounds after rounds after rounds where I could see the logic behind it, and I could see that they were, taking some people off guard. They were surprising people with their playstyle. How does that translate into a next tournament where people actually do a deep analysis of you and they prepare? I'm not saying it's gonna go wrong. Maybe they know, they're aware of it, they prepare for it, they go deeper in the playbook, and individually they play as good as they have at this tournament. But it's definitely harder to confirm a surprise than to just surprise.
I mean, in any case, it's just great to see more, I guess, teams from your own scene, so to speak, just come up. I know this was your old team, but I mean, kind of the same way that I might maybe feel about the team like Fragsters we had Refresh on last week. It's just awesome to see someone come in and do well as well, right? Just to, I mean, kind of spice up the diversity a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of potential in these players, especially Almanac and Devil Duek, which we saw in the Misfits team were also pretty legit good players. And then I think like the minor surprise for me was Toinu actually doing decently well. I mean, he wasn't like carrying or anything, but he's been a guy that kind of had underwhelming lands in the past, and this one was just okay. He got a bunch of openings that were converted into rounds, so that's kind of doing his job as the AWPer. Maybe not fragging as much as like a device or a simple or something like that, but he's doing his own job. But I think there are a lot of potential pitfalls. Like first one, the thing we mentioned with a dual calling thing, that's going to be an issue, and I think they'll at one point have to like stop, resolve that, even though it might cause some like short-term weaker results. And then after that, you also have, I don't know, they lost actually their own map pick, I think, in 3 of the best of 3s, which is kind of weird for a team to do that. And then actually they could have been eliminated very early. I think the Renegades game was 1-0 for Renegades, and then the Cash game that they won, even though Cash isn't really their strong suit, they were like down 14-8. So the whole story could have not even happened if they didn't pull off that weird comeback on Cash with like triple op setups and stuff like that. So there are a lot of question marks for me about the team, but it's like still props for what they managed to do in Chicago, definitely.
Let's move on a little bit to a next team that I think also has to be mentioned. Just speaking of revitalizing teams, or at least making them a little bit younger, is fnatic, who also had a pretty nice run there, especially since they have a 16-year-old guy up there with them, kind of taking everything in stride and doing really well. Obviously, Brolin was doing quite well. What was that like for you to see just that guy coming in and totally doing well?
Well, to be honest, Brolin, at least in the inner circles, was almost always part of the conversation when you were talking about, who is going to be the next big thing. Like, who can do it? I think Brolin was a name that was often mentioned. I think Hampus, who used to play in reserve, was also a name that was coming, thinking, they could probably do it at the higher level. So it is encouraging to see a young player being given an opportunity. I think for everyone that plays Counter-Strike, it's always an amazing story when you see that, young player going through qualifiers to FPL to being in a Fnatic. So the story in itself, the story is very nice. I think individually, he probably has a huge margin for progression, and I think that's what's very impressive about him, is that even with very limited experience, he did a very decent job with Fnatic. So that's a good sign, definitely, and it's gonna be up to him and his work ethics to improve and keep improving, because the talent is definitely here. That was no question for me. 2 years ago, I knew that this guy was gonna be something, at least that he knew how to do things at the game better than I ever did, even after 15 years. So definitely, he has something for it. But what was really interesting for me in that Fnatic is just how they played overall as a team and individually. That was just really, really, really good. And the way they were playing together and the decisions they were making, the way they were handling the rounds, it was impressively good. Impressively good? Doesn't matter. It was good. That's the point. As a team, they were extremely good. And then you see like JW on Mirage going full JW, which is a thing that we hadn't seen for quite some time, being extremely aggressive, extremely mobile with the op, having a lot of influence and impact in the rounds. And Crims just being Crims, I think he was probably the one that you could never pinpoint and criticize. He has been extremely consistent. Even when Fnatic was in trouble, I think he always did his job and is one of the best at his position and at his role. But just the squad together made sense. The calls made sense. The way they were handling the rounds was rather good and optimized. Individually, they were almost all like showing up and playing good when they needed to. I think maybe just Twist had good games, bad games, and I think that if he finds a somewhat consistency, that's going to be really scary, because I know from playing against him, would it be FPL, would it be as a team, I know that Twist can be extremely good. Twist was always my question mark for many years. I was wondering, why is this guy not playing in a better team? Because consistently he would demolish me in teams, and I would think, why isn't he in NIP? Why isn't he in Fnatic? So now finally he's there. I think if he finds consistency in his level, and then you add Crims, who is Crims, I think that's enough of a description. You have JW playing, on his prime, then suddenly Fnatic has to be a discussion, for the very high placings in tournament. And beside that individual perspective that was really good for me at IEM Chicago, I really liked the way they were playing as a team, because that had been lackluster in the past. Just the game plan that they had, and it seemed to make sense in Chicago. So it wasn't only individual; it was also as a team.
I think like JW is actually, I know he's always been one to share his emotions and his thoughts about the game, but after this one he was even more heartfelt, I think. He even tweeted out that's actually a result that's going to be very hard for him to shake off. He also, when Astralis won and Magis was tweeting out, boy, I'm so happy, blah, blah, blah. He was like, you ever think about leaving this team with two others and going somewhere else? You're going to regret it for the rest of your lives. Like being very, also, I know he often is, but like self-deprecating, or at least has that insight. But I feel like this one was bad for him, because I think maybe because of what you said, Mathieu, that he feels like this could be like a team for the first time in a long while, right? Even though he had to lose his best friend, right?
The score against Astralis, like 14-16 loss and overtime loss to the guys that everyone's claiming to be like the best team potentially ever to play CSGO. And this is Fnatic that haven't been together so long, and have been like, a lot of these players have been so criticized on different stuff, on JW as an opper, as like a player that lost his role. Exist has been like on the end of a lot of jokes for his vetoes, for this and that, for like not being a good caller.
Even when he didn't do them, right?
What?
Even when he didn't do them?
Yeah, at least that's what he said, at least, that a lot of it was down to the NIP coaches at the time. So it's kind of cool to see them all come back together and like actually have this like good Swedish team back again. And it's something that I feel like has been missed in CS, at least for me. It seems weird to not have a good Swedish team.
All right, that's all you have from Chicago. I guess we kind of rounded that off pretty nicely. It was a pretty fun event to look at, except that the matches were like in the middle of the night, and sometimes Striker or Prof would like leave some work for me when I was waking up at 6 a.m. The game would be over, and it was like, oh, you can take over now. More events in the EU, please. Oh wait, next one's Atlanta. All right, you can't win them all, right?
And then we have ECS in Dallas as well.
Oh yeah, in Texas. But then we come to the greatest place for CS, the home of CS in Denmark. So
I mean, I wouldn't agree with that. Like home of CS Denmark thing. That's like pretty new age thinking, and I'm not.
Everyone knows it's Lausanne, Switzerland, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's move on a little bit, because there's this guy in chat, PG, who's been talking about Vitality for. I guess he was kind of salty.
You have been literally baiting people with this Vitality topic for 45 minutes at least.
So let's
talk about it a bit later after we get like the viewer question.
Let's talk a little bit about Atlanta first. Well, like, it kind of ties in, right? Because obviously they're going to be playing there. So each week we have or from now on at least, we have a poster on that you can win. If you go to our Twitter and find the tweet before each episode that says, okay, so what do you guys want to debate? And the best suggestion gets a poster for any picture from our galleries that you might want.
Yeah, print it out.
We'll
nice
print it out.
Fancy, big, good details. Last
time was the Polish Wojciech Hazard asking about who else than FaZe, I think it was, right? So mainly because we needed to talk about Vitality this time, but also, and it's not that this question is very, very, very good or insightful, but it could spawn off some debate about what actually makes a good team and what a team might need fixing, or what a new team might not be able to fix. So Eden asks, what changes should be made within Vitality for them to be able to compete at the level the names in that roster should be playing at? And I think that the should be at the end here is kind of the core of the question. Is that even something you can talk about when the roster is like 2 months old?
Can I actually just have a slight digression? Like the last guy that won was Hazard, and this guy is Eden. That's literally the name of the football player. Like these two names combined.
Oh, so that's a conspiracy right here.
That's pretty good. Maybe it's the same guy. Let's see.
Maybe it is the same guy.
I'm gonna be getting his. He'll have to send me his address, so I guess I'll know by then. Let's talk about Vitality then. I guess we can, if you guys really want to.
Yeah, I'm happy to. It's a very interesting subject.
We had NBK on here actually. I think only a week or two before it was revealed, and we were I was kind of probing him about it. So I was pretty happy to see that it came into fruition, and obviously, like, this guy, pretty hyped about the roster. But then we haven't maybe seen, or I guess, I don't know if you can call it really deserved or you can call it expected in HLTV terms. But what do you think, Mathieu, about what you've seen from them so far, and maybe what you haven't seen?
Well, to be honest, first of all, I think it's too early to even talk about changes. To me, it's absolutely out of the question. You know, you gotta give them some time to put their game plan together. So I wouldn't do any change to Vitality at the moment. First of all, then I have seen a bunch of the games, and I'm actually surprised because what I have seen from them was pretty good. So now I look at their match pages, and I see the qualifiers not going well, losing a map left and right. So I'm kind of surprised because the maps that I've seen from them, and there is even a bunch of maps that I've analyzed in my stream, which were pretty good, individually speaking, even like the game plan that they had and the way they were playing their rounds was rather good. So it's kind of a question for me. It's kind of a question mark. I think Vitality, when it comes to the roster, they probably have everything they need to succeed. That would be my opinion when it comes to the lineup, at least. It's one of these scenarios where if everyone plays their best, then it makes a lot of sense, because I think they have aggressive players, they have defensive players. Obviously, they have Zero that you have to mention if you talk about French Counter-Strike. His numbers are absolutely insane. There is probably only Simple that can ever get as close, with Zero. But they have passive players, they have aggressive players, they have experience, they have this young blood with Zero. You could argue that maybe the balance of 3 experienced, 2 young. Here it's not really the case. It's more like 1 young and 4 rather experienced players. But also they have people that can come up with suggestions. I think Apex is coming into his form at the moment. He has a lot of impact individually. He also usually helps with the suggestions. Then you have Happy, obviously, that used to be an in-game leader. He can help NBK. I feel like I miss information from the inside to have an educated opinion. Because when I just look at the roster, my first reaction was, yeah, I can see it work. I can see that project coming together.
Joss is dead, or
I don't know.
I was waiting for you to chime in. Yeah.
no? I was expecting you to like.
I can go on
guide the
more if you want.
conversation.
I
No,
don't
that's
wanna
fine.
bore
That's
people.
fine. I was actually just dozing off because I was kind of wondering why would they send so overexposed pictures for us? Like, looks like Apex is hardly. He's like just barely opening his eyes here.
I'm not a big fan. These pictures are.
Yeah,
That's not my job anyway.
A case could be made for actually another guy whose question was, is Saiwu the next Simple? I guess you kind of answered that. It was quite funny. I was talking to NBK actually just shortly before the show, and we were talking about the Atlanta and what they were doing and how Saiwu can really be this talented, all that stuff. And he was like, I don't even know. I don't even care. I just care about keeping the guy close to me.
Yeah, I like he's been hyping him up like a lot. Just like, yeah, this guy's great. Like every opportunity he has, just like Zaiwu, just like making him happy, keeping him happy. Play with me, please. Let's
Do not
win
get
some.
poached by G2 in the next round.
Don't
Right?
get poached by.
I think they're gonna
FaZe.
make sure it's not gonna happen. But Zaiwu is just what is impressive to me. What's mind blowing when I see Zaiwu play is his decision making. It's not even his ability to give 5 1 DX left and right, because that I want to say that I have seen this from other players. I've seen other players being insane with their aim and their mechanical skill. But what is insane about Zaiwu is his decision making and his awareness of the situation. And compare that and put that in context of a new and young player who has almost no experience playing at the top level, and it doesn't matter at all. He has it figured out. The clutches, his timings, how to react to a
He's
smoke.
so calm as well, like
Yes,
in these situations.
that's mind blowing. To me, that's mind blowing. Zaiwu plays like someone that has been at the top level for 10 years. And that's what is mind blowing for me. The way he handles situation, the decisions he makes live during the rounds just feels like someone who has done it his entire life. And he just knows, he has the 10,000 plus hours that you need to be an expert. He has them already. And that's what is crazy to me. And I can understand why NBK would want to, stay close to that person, because he's destined for greatness when it comes to Counter-Strike. There is really no way around it.
Do you think is this the case where when he then finally gets to play on big stage? I know we saw him at the major, but I don't really count that. Do you think that he could possibly hit a brick wall by then? Because with the inexperience, or with how inexperienced he is, or maybe with the hype that comes right now, do you think he might hit a wall?
Well, there's 2 things. First, maybe like emotionally speaking, psychologically speaking, I don't know. Maybe that's a huge challenge. He goes on a big stage. Maybe he crumbles. I don't think that's the case, but yes, that could be a factor that comes. When you're a young player / young person going to a very adrenaline-filled situation, there's really no way to tell how he's going to react. Plus, I don't really know him that much as a person. But the reason why I think this is not going to happen is because of his playstyle. You know, when you have someone that goes for the very high risky play and extremely flashy and destroys everyone, I look at them play and I am thinking, I don't know if it's gonna work the next game. I'm not sure he can do that, you know, time and time again. But when Zaibu plays, and in my mind he makes the right decision 9 times out of 10, then I can see that translating into whatever context that is. Just because of the way he plays Counter-Strike, that is fundamentally sound and correct, it is something that you can just take and translate it into your semifinal or whatever that is, because you base your success on making the right decision. And if the thought process is correct, then I think that translates directly into it. It's not just being flashy and crazy and, you know, for one tap and, you know, people are like, oh, and that's it. You know, it's just he plays correctly almost every time. And I think that's going to happen in whatever context that is.
Yeah, I think he kind of reminds me of Rops in that way. Like also a player that got up from FPL, whatever, and was just a pug star, but his way of playing when he got onto mouse, like he was instantly playing well. He didn't really need any time to adapt to playing on the top level because or at LAN or anything, just because he played like the same style of play, and that's it. That's more or less it. So I think like Zaibu won't have a long like adaptation time needed for him to be like a good LAN player as well. And especially they qualified actually for, as you mentioned, like for DreamHack Atlanta, right? And for the Lootbit Cup on Malta, which is like also a smaller tournament. So he will actually get the small events first, even though he's playing with a high profile team, which could actually help as well. He's not jumping into like the tier 1 tournament straight away. So I think that's a good thing for him individually as well.
Let's just move on to Atlanta actually, because Vitaly obviously going to be there, and I saw also NBK was posted a picture of his plane taking off because they were going to go boot camp for a week or so. So do you guys think that they could actually have an impact here? If you look at the teams that they're up against, obviously some of them are more experienced, and some of them are also kind of, I guess, new rosters in that sense. Rogue has a new leader, and Complexity isn't that old as a roster, and also United made moves. What do you guys think about Vitality's chances in Atlanta?
I honestly think they're going to win this. I think this is just going to be like, we're going to be like playing a first LAN together. We're like a good team, a lot of experienced players, except Zaibu, who is a god of CS, just it seems like, and they're just gonna destroy everyone, and that's it.
I was gonna go that direction as well. Probably not be as confident as Prof just was, but yeah, I agree. I think that's probably the best context for them to have a first LAN experience. They don't have any huge opponent going up against them. There is a lot of experience in that roster, so I don't think there's going to be any first event jittery. As you said, Zero is his first event, but he already knows Counter-Strike from A to Z. So I think that's a very good first event for them to have. I think Ghost can be like, you know,
Ghost, definitely.
From GMAX Stockholm, and when I actually got really interested in Ghost gaming and I was looking at them play, they could have a deep run at that event. I think they play very fundamentally sound Counter-Strike. They have very good individuals. So Ghost needs to be considered. I think Fraxters is always dangerous. It's one of these teams that flies under the radar until you play against them and you realize that they have a very, like maybe they don't have the depth of a like super high tier team, but what they want to do, they do it really well. So if things start well for Fraxters, I know that they can be dangerous because I have played against them and I know how it feels like to play against them. And you know they have a very good start of the map and they have a very good game plan. So in that sense, I think Fraxters needs to be considered. I don't really know. I think Luminosity have had better results recently than it was at the beginning, but I am not an expert, so I really would not comment on that. United were also a little bit surprising in Chicago, picking up the win in the first round. So it's for me, I'm looking at this list of participants, and I don't really know what to expect. But I agree that Vitality is in a good position going there.
I think this is actually one of the more interesting DreamHack Opens we've had. I mean, not that they're really top teams, but it's just a really great composition of teams, right? And some of them have new players, and some of them are totally new, and Some of them have a little bit more experience, and
yeah, some on the downfall, some on the rise. Ghost kind of rising up, complexity. They actually had like a decent summit event actually, so that's been like okay for them. Envy got invited, I don't know like how, but okay, let's just accept that as a fact. And then as you mentioned, like Luminosity had a decent IEM Chicago, a bit better than before. So it feels like just like a field of teams that Vitality should beat, and they probably will. That's just my feeling about this. Of course, it's not a given for them. They're actually the lowest like ranked team out of all of these, I think. Envy, what is Envy's rank?
bad.
Yeah, they're 87. So except Envy, they're the lowest. They're like ranked 45 at the moment. Vitality, that is. So they're kind of at the bottom. But seeing the players and all of that, I think it's gonna be a good event for them.
You guys have no love for Rogue?
I just feel like I'm not in a position to comment so much on Rogue because I haven't seen so much from them, so I really wouldn't know where to put them right now. I'm gonna be very curious to see how MSL sets in that team, his impact on the way they play together. I think he's been opping a lot in Rogue, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm just going in with like an open mind. I don't really have like prejudgments. I'm just waiting to see what they're gonna do. But I really wouldn't call myself an expert on Rogue at the moment.
It's definitely, I think this is too early for them, because knowing MSL, the way he's going to be leading is going to be too structured and with too many, I think, elements for it to already have impact now. And also actually talked to him before Chicago. We have an interview coming out shortly with him, and it's like he's definitely very interested in it, and he's pretty excited about their individual skill levels, but he also kind of concedes that it's my style is pretty structured, and it might not be within the first few months that we can actually see the fruits of that. And just having him calling in English, I'm also a bit skeptical about in the beginning, even though it kind of worked in Valencia where they won with Mixwell. But
that wasn't a big event either. So
but it was a DreamHack Open, so in that you could kind of compare them. But I don't really see them. I'm definitely sure that it's gonna be either Vitality or between Ghost and Fractures, I think, to go up and take this.
I mean, United had a surprising run at Chicago with beating Navi, but still. I don't know what's going on with that team.
Navi first game after they won.
Going to come in? What's the deal with that? I thought he was like instantly going to join the team. Then I saw he wasn't at IEM Chicago, so I have no idea what's going on.
Oh, you mean with the whole debacle about his brother and all that?
Yeah, all of that good stuff.
The good stuff.
Did you notice any of that, Mathieu? We talked about it the last time. Freakazoid's emotionally ladded stream that he did. For me, if I was a psychologist, I would have a field day with an outbreak like that.
Well, the truth is that now we are. We are. Actors in a field, and you have to be careful with what you say and how you say it. And sometimes someone just goes emotional and says whatever they have on their mind, and it shocks a little bit. But I think we have to be tolerant to some extent. Obviously up to a limit, right? But it kind of reminds people that there are emotions involved in the game, and sometimes something's gonna happen that's gonna really put you on edge, and then it's a challenge to actually keep a straight face and act professionally and respectfully, even though you're extremely disappointed in the situation. But I usually don't put that much importance to events like that. I think it's part of it.
More like I guess entertainment for the masses, so to speak. Even though it was kind of maybe not the insight you want to a family dynamic.
No, definitely.
I mean, who didn't have a fight with his brother if he has a brother or a sister or whatever? Stuff like that happens all the time. So.
It was probably often a lot more physical, maybe something you wouldn't want to see on a DreamHack Open stage. Anyway, We're actually going to cut you out for just a little while, Maniac, because we're going to do our GG.Bet game now. For those of you that don't know, we're going to come back to you. You don't have to wave goodbye completely. It's our game where we go to GG.Bet every week and find the fun and juicy odds and play our little game. We start out with €1,000 each on our accounts, and then, well, this is the standings now. I'm not going to say much about that because I think the tendency is pretty clear. This is where we're at right now, Prof.
Yeah, it's not going that well.
We obviously don't have Striker with us at this moment, but all of us lost money, so there's not really much to say. And the last thing we bet on was IEM Chicago groups, and I think we all just had one game that didn't go well, and it was probably Navi, all of us.
Actually, my Navi bet went through because I bet that the game will have like less than 26 rounds or something like that, and then United just destroyed them, so I kind of won that. But I don't know what went wrong, but it's something.
It usually does. It usually does. But there's another week and another chance to make some money. We wanted to bet on DreamHack Open Atlanta just because we were talking about it anyway, but alas, they aren't up on GG.Bet yet, so we had to do something else. And we also are playing with Striker's money actually for this one. He couldn't be here tonight, unfortunately, but he did make one. He did make a slip for us that he sent us. So I guess we'll kind of be having to analyze his slip in some way, mostly belittling him, I guess.
Of course.
Let's see. So what we did instead was bet on EPL matches, the Pro League matches that are coming up for the European part of the Pro League. I don't know what you did, but that was what I did. Let's see your slip.
Yeah, the thing is, like, these Pro League matches are so hard to actually find something that makes sense. And the way I approached it was actually just looking at teams that need the wins to kind of potentially get into a spot, so they might be more motivated as well. So FaZe is there on the limit, and they're also playing against Heroic, which is not like a great team. So FaZe had like a decent tournament as well. And I said, okay, let's go like FaZe winning both of the games, because just betting on one game doesn't make that much sense, I feel like. It's not like you know which map is going to be played or anything, it's kind of random, so might as well bet on both. And I also took Hellraisers over G2. Just Hellraisers having Hobbit now will take some adaptations, but I'm not sure like what even is the status with G2, who's going to be playing tomorrow. Could be either like the old team or the new team, but whatever happens, it's going to be a weird combination, and I don't feel like G2 is going to be like up to task in that regard, and just like they haven't been that good for a long while, so I'm just like going also for Hellraisers there for the two games.
Your boy Isa's going to do great, huh?
Definitely.
All right, so I kind of had the same thinking. I put them to win just the one match over Wendigo. I think actually 1.56 is pretty good for that matchup. When you see how Hellraisers can actually go off. I know that they can also really fall off if they don't hit their stride, and it very much depends on the map. But I picked them anyway. And then I have FaZe also to beat Heroic just to make a safe one. And then fnatic versus X-Space Shoulders. Just when we talked about fnatic, I think what we saw from IEM should be enough for me to say that they'll also beat the old Space Soldiers crowd. And 1.7 is actually pretty good for, I feel like, this difference in power. And also just had to make a pretty safe slip this time, because actually, if I lose this, I'm gonna probably get below my starting pool. So this is gonna be, this is gonna have to be a safe one for me.
That is mostly how betting works. Most of the time, you start with some amount and then you lose that amount.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
So kids out there, be careful how you gamble and don't.
And if it gets out of hand, like I should probably do, contact someone professional, please.
I mean, if you're betting with your own money, you would probably need to seek help by now.
Probably,
this just isn't working out for you.
So let's take out Strikers actually.
He bet the two matches. Oh, what is? I can't actually see what this is.
Yes, Hellraisers to beat Heroic 2 times.
Huh? But why are his odds so different? Oh, he bet for today's matches. What a legend! Probably already finished.
He's way ahead of us, right?
Yeah.
We could probably go see now if he won. He also kind of funny. He's probably betting on the one matchup that I thought was maybe the most uncertain one, even though the odds aren't saying that, but the Ago versus X-Space Soldiers. I think he has them to win twice, right?
That's kind of weird bet just because, like, I mean, actually, like, Ago hasn't been playing that well. People say AGO, I call him Ago, so whatever, sue me. They haven't been playing, like, really well with all of the roster changes, with Snatchy going to Virtus Pro. It just seems like the team is kind of tapering off a bit as, like, all of the hype that they had, like, end of 2017, 17 and lost in the years. So maybe not that bad of a move to bet against them.
All right, so let's bring back an actual live pick of someone and not just an image of Striker not being here anyway.
Oh, I'm back. I was
Hey,
having
Mathieu.
a chat. I was having a good discussion with your chat.
Yeah,
so
I was just watching one of the questions. En toute objectivité, tu vois vraiment Vitality gagner cette LAN? I think this means, do you really do you think that Vitality can really win this LAN or something?
Yeah, exactly what I was asking me.
And then
my
you got
answer was,
kind of owned. You have to write in English. In the
Yeah,
chat.
exactly. I am very sorry. I didn't mean to offend
International
anyone.
fight.
I usually try, if I speak the language that's spoken to me, I try to match it. I feel like it's just out of respect, but you're right. So what I said to that question, I said I think Vitality has a legit shot, but I wouldn't go as far as saying that, they are number one favorite and that's their event to win. I wouldn't go that far, but I think they definitely have a shot at winning the event.
Anyway, if you have any other questions, preferably in English, I guess I could
please.
translate from German also, but it'll be a little bit hard for all of us. If you have any questions for Maniac or the rest of the panel, please feel free to come with them now at the end of the show here. Before we close down, you have the opportunity, unfortunately not to win any posters, but at this point, but we might be able to work something out.
We can touch on, like, just shortly on the Hobbit acquisition by Hellraisers, even though like the announcement didn't really go that well. They obviously had some issues over there with the report going out, and then them, like, posting the announcement and deleting the tweet, then tweeting again the same thing. Kind of a rough couple of days for Hellraisers, but in the end, Hobbit is there. They're replacing Bondic. What do we think about this one? It feels like the roster change, a lot of people kind of expected it could happen, but maybe in place of Dead Fox. So what do you guys think?
I agree. Although I think, Dead Fox is a little bit of a complicated team for me because yes, I mean stat-wise, his numbers obviously are below the rest of the team, if I'm not mistaken. But I also think that he has made a lot of sacrifices since Voxic joined the team. He used to be the main operator, he switched to play, less shiny positions. So I think he sacrificed himself a lot for the team. He probably brings a lot to the team outside of the game, and some of these things we can feel it, we can touch it, we can see it from the outside. So I feel like I don't have enough information on Dead Fox, because if I was just looking at the numbers and making just like a mathematical formula, I would say, yeah, sure, just remove Dead Fox, bring in Hobbit. But obviously there must be things that we miss and we don't know. But overall, I think it's a good move. I tweeted that if Hobbit is gonna play the best Hobbit version of him, then that's an upgrade for Hellraisers, 100%. Because whenever Gambit was having a good time when Zeus was in, Hobbit was extremely impressive. Individually, he's a very influential rifler. He has absolutely no fear. I think his game sense is really good. I think he suffered a lot from having to pick up the in-game leadership.
Yep.
And he dropped tremendously as an individual. But I'm pretty sure that the player that he was in Gambit with Zeus is still there. So if things can work with Angel and they can agree on how they want to play, and he finds himself in a comfortable position and in a good context, I could definitely see him, go back to his extremely good level. And if that happens, then that's going to be an upgrade for Hellraisers for sure.
So there wasn't. Yeah, go ahead, Prof.
I just wanted to add, like, the Dead Fox thing from my insight on the team and talking with the player, with the coaches, with the coach and stuff like that. Feels like he is the guy that really, like, similar to what Sticko does for Mouse Sports. I guess he's playing the bad positions. He's dropping guns. He's more than that. He's kind of like facilitating others through communication. I think potentially his English is the best out of the lot over there. So he can kind of just relay information better and faster and stuff like that. So that kind of helps the team as well. So that is kind of where he fits in the team. And obviously Bondik hasn't been playing that well individually, and he has shown at times that he's a guy that can frag out, but just in this team it wasn't working out, be it the role, the players around him, or something else. It just feels like a good move for maybe both sides to just explore other options, since I think Bondik wasn't really happy with what he was doing in Hellraisers. So it feels like it makes sense for me at least. So it could be a good upgrade. But at the same time, is Hobbit gonna feel any better in the same position that Bondik played? Will they need to do some more changes? Just like Angel's individual style of play is also kind of weird.
When you bring in Hobbit, I think just because of the aura that he can have and the level that he can display, I think you have to make some adjustments. If I'm Angel now and I bring in Hobbit and I'm taking consideration how he was playing with Gambit when Gambit was at the top level, then I think you have to try and put him in a good position. I don't think it can be just like a, pose for pose, like that would be a French way to say it, but that you can just mix him and put him in the positions that Bondik were playing and just say, this is what you do now. I think with his talent and the impact that he can have, you have to find a way to maximize that. So it's going to be, if they go that way, it's going to be a tactical challenge, obviously. People are going to have to make sacrifice. But if it works, then yeah, sure. I tweeted that if you have Issa, Woxic, and Hobbit, all three firing at all cylinder, then you kind of have this trident, like a feel for a team to be consistently good. You need at least 3 people who show up quite consistently. Because if it's going to be only 1 or 2 people, then the weight on their shoulder is too big. If they don't show up, suddenly the team isn't like nowhere to be found. So if Hobbit is going to show up and play consistently to his top level, then you add Issa and Woxic, who are, in my opinion, quite consistent. Maybe, they can obviously always improve, and they have games where they disappear here and there, but overall, clearly the 2 best players of the team. Then suddenly you have a very good base, a very solid basis of 3 players with a lot of impact individually. Angel can, handle the team and shape them, mold them, have them play however he wants to. And then you have Dead Fox, which it seems like is a very good teammate and can fit in the role and do it to a certain level. And yeah, sure, why not? I think Hellraisers could definitely, be better after this.
You guys don't think that maybe there's also the potential for them to make another move down the line? I mean, if you don't have Dead Fox or other players in the region maybe being available, they might be able to make a pickup after.
In the region of the whole world.
Well,
yeah. They have literally a world flag for them.
That's true.
In the region of planet Earth.
No, I meant the same as Hobbit.
I don't know if you saw the tweet I put out, just a screenshot from the HLTV forums, like Milky Way 13 majors, like Andromeda 0 majors, more or less what you're talking about here.
That's true. Oh, I meant this. I meant in CIS and CIS.
Yeah.
Since
but they're not a CIS team. People always say that, but they're actually
not. I know.
Especially now with Bondik leaving, they're like Dead Fox isn't from a CIS team.
But they're more actually a Middle Eastern team than anything else now. You can't even say that, right? Because Turkey isn't there.
There's actually a good question for me. Can you see the Italy coast from where you live? That map makes it show like you live on the coast.
You do.
I actually can't see it because it's like 200 kilometers away.
You need very good binoculars, right? I mean, you need a telescope or something.
And there are also like islands in between, so
that's another problem.
It's not really easy to see.
A better question might be the one that is touching on Team Liquid's perpetually losing in the finals of big events. Do they need a roster change? And I think who in their right mind would actually look at that roster and how they play when they play well and say they need a change, and wouldn't even be sure what it was, right? For me, it's so very hard to pin down what it is that they actually need, and that is obviously also because it probably comes from within, or it doesn't come from within, that it's so hard for us to kind of figure out what exactly is wrong, because they're very good. They play exceptionally well, right?
I think on one hand, I do believe that there might be some, psychological obstacles or barriers when they have to play, in grand final Obviously, the final against Mouse Sports, ESL1 New York comes to mind, where you really feel like they had it in the bag and they kind of let it slip away from them, where they should have won that tournament. But besides that, can you imagine where Liquid would be right now if Astralis just didn't exist? Somehow I
Yeah.
feel like the consistency of Liquid and the qualities of that team are undervalued because Astralis just exist. And this is what we consider right now the best Counter-Strike. And they just do everything better than almost anyone, and they have the consistency, and so I feel like maybe Liquid is just a little bit undervalued in that sense. They are actually a very complete rosters, a complete roster, sorry, when it comes to the roles, the individuals. The only real question could be like the efficiency of Nitro with an op, and then besides that, there's the psychological question: do they always show up when it matters? But sometimes I just stop and think, where would Liquid be now if Astralis just didn't exist? And I think we would see things differently.
Yeah. The weirdest thing, not the weirdest, but kind of, I guess, sad for Liquid fans is it seemed like this was the perfect opportunity, like the perfect tournament for Liquid to finally beat Astralis in a grand final, because the way they beat FaZe in the semi was like so impressive. Like coming back after they kind of through the first map, and it seemed like Liquid is gonna choke again, blah blah. Then they destroy FaZe on the other two maps. It's like, okay, this kind of looks convincing. They have like the fortitude to come back and to like play so well. And then Astralis hasn't been looking that good. Like Fnatic almost eliminate them before that. It seems like everything's just like, if this is their like perfect chance to finally break the curse, and then they literally, it's not even close. It's not even. I mean, the first map was kind of close, but after that went Astralis' way. It wasn't even like a contested grand final.
I think you also have to like imagine being Liquid and going up against Astralis again in the grand final, then making the first map close, losing it, and then seeing that the next map is Nuke.
Yeah.
And you have to be like, well, we lost it. I mean, psychologically, that I think your confidence must fall off a cliff right there, right?
I agree with you. I think it's a touching point that's very important here because of their history and because Astralis have had the better of Liquid many, many times. Now I feel like whenever the situation is 50-50 between these two teams, it's actually not 50-50. It's 60-40 or 70-30. And I feel like for Liquid to finally break that kind of curse or really beat Astralis in the grand final, they would need to have like the best scenario possible and hit very little bump on the way there, and have a perfect showing. And maybe Astralis is just a little bit weaker that day or worse that day, but whenever things get tight and whenever the game is really close, then that's where all the psychological factors come into play, because you're Liquid and you're up, I don't know, 13-5. Let's say you're up 13-5 against Astralis. You're having a good time. Everything is just flowing. People are playing their game. Suddenly Astralis is like rolling back into the game, and then it's 13-13. And at that point, objectively speaking, it's 50-50, but it's not. It's just not, because of the history, because of Astralis have beaten Liquid so many times. So this is why it becomes very complicated, because I feel like they would need to destroy Astralis for them to really break it and start to contest with them on a regular basis.
One thing I really want to know, if there's like anyone just at this moment right now that whose brain I could pick in that regard, would be kind of like Zeus. At this point, Zeus, what are you saying to the team after a game like this? I mean, what do you actually have left in the bag, psychologically or coach wise, that you can pull out and say to the team that would make them feel like they still believe that there's a chance to do it? Because I feel like, I know we always say that they just have to win this one event, but as time goes by, it's gotta feel like more and more for them that it's never gonna happen. I mean, I would certainly, and maybe because I'm a little bit weaker psychologically than a pro player would be, I would be thinking now, is it ever gonna happen for me?
I actually was just listening today to the podcast that DDK does, and it was an episode with Zeus. I think it's a bit older, actually. I think it's from recorded at the major. I don't know when it was released. And Zeus was talking about like just the coaching, psychological aspect, and all of that stuff. And the way he kind of presented it, that they just want to play and have a consistent level. and then have like a consistent level maybe over 6 months, and after that, if you can't progress any further, maybe then you can consider roster changes or stuff like that. So if that is actually what they believe, because you can say something, but making the players all believe it is actually a kind of a different story. But if they actually believe in that, then potentially this won't shake them any further. They'll still be like happy with being consistently second, and then just wait for the opportunity for Astralis to kind of fall off and then take away the whatever the in the long run, just win in the long run, whatever.
There was actually a good question a little bit higher up for you, Maniac. Which team in your career did you hate playing against, or was it a single player? I don't really know. It was before we started talking about the and then people started spamming you in Finnish. Oh, that's good, because you said you would answer in the language you were asking.
People are trolling me, trying to have me answer in all the languages.
Let's go with player then. In your time as a player, was there anyone who that was
Player
your
that I hated to play
that
against?
was Astralis to your Liquid, I guess?
That's actually a good question. Let me think about it.
You can mention a team if you want, because I don't really.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be a player, but I think just usually the Danes, the Danish players, when they would get a little bit of advantage over you, they would just, for example, Dupree is a good example. I have almost like flashbacks playing against Dupree, and suddenly they have a good start to the game, and you could see that the respect was just thrown out the window, and the game wasn't even the game anymore. It was just about rushing and destroying us. So I always felt like whenever we were playing against the Danish top CS, we really had to make a compelling argument for our case early in the game. Otherwise, the match would have absolutely no sense, and we couldn't really play, because if they started having a good start of the game against us, they would just destroy us, and we could never have any game style, any plan. They would just go straight in our face and destroy us. So that's probably one of the hardest things for me to play against these people.
That really, I mean, what you're saying there really plays into what I've come to know as his personality also. Like, he's such a funny, upbeat, like very erratic kind of person. And if you're on his side, then it's great. And if you're not, he's just gonna be like trolling you or haunting you until you kind of give up, right?
Yeah.
So I guess if you can capitalize on that in game, that I guess it's gotta be pretty good. But I'm glad to hear. That it's the Danes that made the most problems.
They
for
gave
you.
me nightmares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, guys, please continue hitting us with your questions if you have any.
I mean, there was also a question about ISF, but I don't think. Actually, I really wanted to talk about like ISF and WSG, but that's kind of a too long of a topic in itself. So, and just talking about the results doesn't make a lot of sense. So it's just like Havu won. They destroyed everyone except actually Ultico in the Serbian team.
There was one
which
guy
is actually
here.
A mixed team.
There's one guy here. What's your opinion on Crystal's struggle? And it's kind of funny. I was thinking about that as well, because I often ended up typing out the news for whenever he was replaced in a team.
The guy emotionally connected to Crystal.
Yeah, in some weird kind of way, because it was always me. Like, it seems like the guy can't really catch a break, right? Coming in and out of this team, that team, moving to NA to play a little bit, and then the other team, and then coming back, and doesn't seem like he can really find a safe spot for him.
Yeah, I know him. We're talking German Crystal, right?
Crystal,
just sure. Yeah, I know him as a person. He's a pretty good guy, but I don't really know. I think, yeah, as you say, he never really found his footing in any team right now. He's just going left and right, and I think it's very hard to improve and progress as a player when the context always changes, and when people don't really give you their trust, and you try in this team, it doesn't really work, so you go to a new one. And it's really hard to draw a conclusion and benefit from these episodes if it's going to change so much. So I don't really know. His time might have passed, at least under the spotlight. If he has the dedication, if he has the will, then join a lesser team and make a case for yourself again. I think it's like when you're a professional player, you have like a credit score, like how people are willing to give you money, and that score will depreciate with the bad experiences that you have. And when you hit a certain point, then you have to work for it again, and you can't really just play off of your reputation or your past teams. And sadly for him, I think he has run out of steam somehow, and he's probably gonna need to join a little bit lesser team and prove that he can do it again, and maybe people will give him opportunities again.
So what you're saying is he should join Scream in a lesser team, and then the two of them could take over.
Why would you put these words in my mouth? I'm not even gonna comment.
No, I was just mean you said the same thing about him. So.
No, yeah, I think when you hit the rough patch, you have, if you really want it and you somehow you can't make it straight into the top tier, then you take your ego, you put it in your pocket, and you put in the hours just to prove people that you deserve the chance again. At least that's what I did, when I got picked back up by LDLC. Before that, I played like a madman on my own, just grinding solo rankings, solo ladders, just to have people notice me and say, oh, wait a minute, he can actually still play Counter-Strike. And it's really hard, and it's ego damaging, and you have to. But if you really want it, then you go through it. I think there is no way around it.
I think we discovered two groundbreaking revelations in this episode. First is if you want it, you need to grind from the lower tiers. And the second was simple, just saying that you need to play a lot of CS to be good at it. So
I can smell the irony here, but it kind of is. It's how it is, right?
Yeah, I mean that's just how it is. But people will always look for some hidden, easy ways and stuff like that. But obviously, it doesn't exist. Just do the work, and hopefully, if you have some talent, or if you're dedicated enough, it'll happen. We'll win the best coverage site of esports awards. Obviously not us, because we're not there. So
yeah, I when people ask me how do you become a professional, that's often a question that comes. I always tell them that it's very tricky, because to be a professional now, you kind of have to put in the hours and the efforts before having any of the benefits of it. And that is where it's really hard, because I feel like you have to go all in it and almost get nothing out of it for quite some time. Maybe you're lucky, someone notices you very early on, and then the fairy tale begins. But for most people, it's a very long grind where you don't have any benefits, no travel, no fancy hotel, no crazy events in front of the crowds. You're just playing a lot, or basically not so much. But that's just how it is, right? You gotta work so hard so that when you get that opportunity, you make it right and you live up to it.
It's kind of funny, actually, that it's also sometimes mentioned as one of the reasons why we have so many great players here in Denmark. One thing is obviously the history and great infrastructure, but it's also just that we have a very, very, very good security net. Like the system and the structure is such that you can never really fall off if you're a young person with just a somewhat of a great background regarding your parents, right?
Young guys, whatever social benefit that you have in Denmark is double the average pay in Croatia or something like that, literally.
Yeah, well, cost is also up, but that's what you said. I mean, it's gonna be a little bit easier to delve in or give in to that kind of grind if you know that you're not completely lost when you do it. When on the other hand, you see for example, if you have some player from an Asian background, especially in Asia, they'll be the zone from their parents, and they will have no extra chances of going out afterwards, and it just plays a big role in how maybe willing you are to actually do it. And then when you then in our scene also have great IGLs or have some veterans that are willing to do, like you said, also maybe go on a lesser team and bring up someone, and I guess that's kind of a cauldron for why maybe the Danes are the most annoying people to play against. I'm glad we reached this conclusion, fellas. I'm very happy that this is
a good show for you.
We started out talking about the French scene, but we also ended out by concluding that the Danish scene is by far the best, right?
Of course, we always finish on that conclusion here in HLTV.
Is it what you usually do? I didn't know where to stand on that.
Or we'll get fired.
Okay, fair enough.
I love how every time a Danish player gets the MVP, it's so biased, even though the Serbian guy is actually deciding the MVPs. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair enough then. guys, I think that's going to be it for us. Thanks so much for tuning in and for all your questions. We're going to be back next week on Monday also, talking a little bit about the DreamHack Atlanta and also looking forward to the ECS and stuff like that. Mathieu, thanks so much for joining us. It was fun.
For this.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I had a very good time. There's so much things to talk about, just if you want, just have me in another time and we can talk about other stuff in Counter-Strike. So thank you very much for having me. I had a very good time.
We'll come back for you. Prof, what he was trying to do there is actually
I was trying to point at my Twitter, but the feed is delayed and it's very hard. It's much shorter than
Go follow Prof at Professeur CS and Yossarian HLTV, that's me, and then Maniac_CSGO is Mathieu here. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. It's been fun. It's been great. Much more CS talk coming to you next week. Bye-bye and good night.